No, oh, okay, that's what I was curious about. Okay, no big deal then. Got you.
One time I got excited about one of those and it was totally.
It was nothing, okay, I wasn't sure. Probably the How we doing? Everybody ready? Yes? Good evening, everyone. I hereby announce that pursuant to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in the notice which was sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, and posted on the bulletin board in Township Hall, and filed in the Township Clerk's office on January 6th, 2026. Mayor Impreveduto?
Here.
Mr. Foster?
Here.
Mr. Bontempo?
Here.
Mr. Romano?
Here.
Mr. Vanderham?
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Wendy. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moment of silence, please, for the men and women in uniform, both at home and abroad, that keep us safe. All right, we're going to start with a proclamation for the high school particle physics team. Give me 1 second to read that off. Whereas the Township of Holmdel proudly recognizes the outstanding achievements of the Holmdel High School particle physics team, whose dedication to scientific excellence, innovation, and teamwork reflects the highest standards of academic achievement. And whereas the team participated in the internationally renowned Beamline for Schools competition sponsored by CERN, where high school students from around the world design original experiments for particle accelerator research. And whereas the competition challenges students to apply advanced concepts in physics. I can't even read this, it's so complicated. Advanced concepts in physics, mathematics, engineering, and experimental design while demonstrating creativity and collaboration. And whereas the Holmdel High School team earned recognition as one of the top 50 teams in the world, bringing international distinction to their school and the Township of Holmdel. And whereas team members Hafsa Osman, Victoria Rampula, Brendan Lawler, Ronan Kravchik, and Arsh Bhatia, under the leadership of Coach June Lee and with the support of the Holmdel Foundation for Educational Excellence, demonstrated exceptional talent and commitment. And whereas the Township of Holmdel commends the students, their coach, their teachers, their families, and all who supported this remarkable accomplishment. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Mayor and Township Committee of the Township of Holmdel on this 21st day of July, 2026, that congratulations are hereby extended to the Holmdel High School particle physics team and Coach June Lee for their outstanding achievement and for representing the Township with excellence on the international stage. Be it further resolved that a suitably engrossed copy of this proclamation be presented to the team as a token of the Township's appreciation and admiration, with best wishes for continued success in all their future endeavors. Well done, top 50 in the world. What do you say, kids? Let's get a picture.
Yeah, I'll move.
So before we get to our representative from JCP&L, I do have a statement myself and our attorney Mike Collins are going to read. Everybody good there? All right. As the public is aware, the township filed a Superior Court enforcement action against Oak Hill Barn LLC, the owner of 177 Stillwell Road in Holmdel. While the township does not ordinarily comment on active litigation, in light of the property owner issuing public statements challenging the township funding the litigation, I want to take this opportunity to provide the public with the facts so there's transparency on this matter. To assist with this, I'd like to turn things over to the township attorney to explain what's transpired.
Sure. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Mayor. I will share with the public what has been alleged in the court filings, including the township's verified complaint, which was filed under oath, as well as the ensuing pleadings and court orders that have been issued in this matter. Oak Hill Barn became the owner of the property earlier this year. The property previously received land use board approvals from the Holmdel Zoning Board on July 15, 2020. After acquiring the property, the defendant did not obtain any approvals from the Planning Board or Zoning Board, and instead began construction contrary to the 2020 Zoning Board approval. The township then received complaints from neighboring property owners. The township issued numerous violations contending that the property owner violated the applicable zoning, the Uniform Construction Code, and the Uniform Fire Code. These violations were issued by the township's zoning officer and construction official, respectively. On April 28, 2026, defendant's attorney wrote the township essentially asking for it to stay enforcement of the violations while it made application to the zoning board. The township, in response, through a letter from myself, expressed a willingness to cooperate provided no further unpermitted construction took place. Thereafter, Holmdel's inspectors observed continued construction. The township also became aware that the property was beginning operations that exceeded the 2020 zoning board approval. As such, the township brought an action in Superior Court to enforce the violations. In response, the court found that Holmdel met the heightened burden to obtain injunctions in the form of both temporary restraints and then a preliminary injunction that enjoined the defendant. The Superior Court judge provided the following oral decision explaining Holmdel's entitlement to an injunction. And this is the judge's opinion. The broader issues are this. The Uniform Construction Code and the Uniform Fire Code are designed to protect the safety of folks using it. And even with the fire code, it is landowners and landowners around it. There's a reason that we have these statewide laws in effect. I think there's also a reason why they're exempted from the Right to Farm Act, because they go to general health, safety, well-being. And I don't think it's appropriate to take the defendant's word for it as opposed to the officials going out there to make sure that the violations have been abated, and they should be the ones to determine whether it is a ticky-tack foul, is it a real foul, what is it? A violation is a violation. So there are structures that are in violation of uniform standards for construction and fire, which would put workers, owners, or visitors, and probably in this situation with a farm, probably little kids, at risk. That creates some concern. I also think there's some level of concern, and I think Mr. Collins is correct in this argument, that I have to be cognizant of the public policy here. So in essence, the violations with the UCC and the UFC were noted, construction continued, and they went unabated. So yes, is the farm going to be shut down? Yes, I understand that. Is it a self-inflicted wound to an extent? Yes. So that doesn't favor the defendant. But far more important, I think there is the message that if a township official comes in and says this structure is unsafe and puts a sticker on it, this structure is a fire violation and puts a sticker on it, that there is an expectation for the township, as well as for the residents of the township and the visitors of the township, and the visitors of the business, that these things should be safe and noncompliance shouldn't be rewarded. And the balance of equities in this situation fully tips in favor of the township here, where all of these wounds are self-inflicted, in essence, by the farm not recognizing on the first violation, whoa, we have to fix this, but instead going headlong down the process and continuing. After Holmdel brought the lawsuit to enforce its zoning laws, the property owner abandoned his past expressed intent of submitting to the zoning board and is instead seeking protections under the Right to Farm Act, which, if applicable, would have the legal effect of exempting the property from local zoning. The township has expressed in past court filings its position that the property does not meet the statutory definition of a commercial farm, which would prevent application of the Right to Farm Act. In a more recent decision, the trial court judge held that the zoning issues must be considered by the Monmouth County Agricultural Development Board in the first instance, and therefore lifted the zoning-based injunction because of this jurisdictional issue. The injunction on the Uniform Construction Code and Uniform Fire Code issues remain in full force and effect. The township is now in the process of completing a filing before the Monmouth County Agricultural Development Board, while the enforcement action on the UCC and UFC counts remain active in Superior Court. Holmdel has advised the MCADB that it will be filing this week, and a neighboring property owner filed a separate complaint with that body earlier today. That is where things stand currently, Mayor.
Thank you. In an online post, the property owner complains that Holmdel, quote unquote, brought this action to shut down my farm and keep it closed. To clarify, what Holmdel brought was an enforcement action to enforce the violations that it issued that the property owner ignored. The township's intent at all times has been to obtain compliance, not seeking any other end. I've reviewed the violations with our construction official to understand why he issued violations that he believes affect life safety. The construction official provided me with this photo that he took on June 5th at 10 a.m. It shows two children, including a little girl, walking along a walkway and jumping over exposed wires. Holmdel didn't bring any action with the goal of shutting a farm down. We brought the action to ensure public safety, including construction code violations involving electrical violations. That resulted in the farm being shut down. That is on the property owner and not the township. It's a quote-unquote self-inflicted wound, as the judge called it. The online post also raises the cost that the township is incurring to litigate this matter, but this argument's a red herring, because the township would not need to spend any money on this matter if the property owner chose to work with Holmdel zoning and construction officials. It did the opposite, completing further construction after stop work orders have been issued, and now litigating this matter rather than applying to the zoning board as it previously indicated it would do. So, if anything, I would submit that the property owner's actions are why you and I are now incurring legal costs to enforce its non-compliance. Also think about the precedent here. If the property owner's argument were followed, it would mean that a property owner can simply buy their way out of compliance by litigating the matter until it was considered too expensive for the municipality to continue to litigate. As a governing body, we have an obligation to defend and enforce the determinations of our zoning official and construction official, who are on the front lines implementing our zoning and the state's construction and fire codes, all of which serve to protect our community as a whole. I, for one, will not be deterred from following through on this obligation by external pressure from the very party that has committed the violation at issue. We will continue to follow the process to ensure the applicable land use and construction codes are properly adhered to, as we would do in any case involving noncompliance like this. I want to thank the public for understanding our ongoing effort to protect the health, safety, and welfare. From that, we're going to go to our presentation from JCP&L. Sir, there's
hear from me, though.
at public comment. We'll hear from you at public comment.
Oh.
At public comment.
I'll be ready.
So we have. Well, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Jose Ortiz with JCP&L. I'm the local external affairs consultant. So I want to first start off by thanking you guys for the opportunity to come here tonight to speak to everyone. I want to take a couple of minutes to explain what this project is, why we're doing it, and how we've worked with Holmdel throughout this process. First, this is an infrastructure replacement and reliability project. Much of the existing equipment along the line was installed in the 1970s and has reached a point where it needs to be replaced. As part of the work, we're also adding a second 34.5 kV circuit to that pole line. The reason for that second circuit is reliability. Without it, the system has a risk and could result in the loss of over 700 megawatts of load and outages affecting more than 200,000 customers throughout Monmouth County, including Holmdel. This project is one of 10 reliability projects that became necessary after the Monmouth County Reliability Project, which would have installed a higher voltage transmission line through the county, did not move forward. Instead, we're reinforcing the existing system within the existing corridors. Beyond addressing the reliability risk, this project modernizes aging infrastructure and strengthens the electrical grid for the future, replacing older equipment and adding redundancy, giving our system operators more flexibility during outages and maintenance, reducing the likelihood of customer interruptions, and improves the overall reliability of the electric grid. I also want to address things we've heard from residents. This project is not about data centers. It's about keeping pace with the decades of residential growth and economic development throughout Monmouth County. Holmdel, like many communities in this area has changed significantly from when these infrastructures were first built in the 1970s. Our responsibility is to make sure that the electric system keeps pace with the growth in the communities. I'd also like to touch on the permitting process, which is something that I know there has been questions about. We began coordinating with Holmdel officials in late 2023, before the construction actually started. We first met with the Township Zoning Officer in September of 2023 to review the project and determining the permits that would be necessary for this project to move ahead. Based on the guidance that we received, zoning permit applications were submitted in July of 2024, and following review, the township issued the zoning permits thereafter. Later that month, we requested a construction permit to the township construction official, and he advised us that it was not required under the Uniform Construction Code because it falls under the exclusive jurisdiction of the public utility. As planning continued, we met with township officials again in May of 2025 and reviewed the project scope, the construction schedules, and the tree clearing activities. We had also an additional meeting in July of 2025 with town members that we went over the full project scope. At this time, we shared the project plans. In September of 2025, JCP&L, with myself, met with town officials on site and walked out the line, reviewed the scope of work, and reviewed our vegetation management process and plans. The township engineering consultant also completed a comprehensive engineering review of the project in December of 2025, covering the structure, the sidewalks, the guardrails, and tree clearing. Following that review, the township issued the tree removal permit, confirming that the proposed tree removals complied with Holmdel's ordinances. In addition to coordinating with township officials, we also notified residents and businesses throughout the process. In October of 2022, we mailed out more than 340 notices advising property owners about the planned upgrades and upcoming scheduled work. In February of 2025, we mailed out more than 360 additional notices informing residents that the survey was complete and the construction would begin in April. Our responsibility is to provide safe and reliable service. Projects like this aren't easy, and we totally recognize the strain and impact it puts on the communities that they serve. But replacing aging infrastructure and strengthening the electrical system today helps ensure that we can continue to provide reliable service for when it's needed by the business and homeowners. So with that, I will close. I will say that we'll also be back in September. I'm going to bring in some business professionals to talk to you folks and go over some of the things that I'm not a subject matter on.
So let me just, if you don't mind holding for a moment here, I want to talk about how we're going to do this quickly. So Kieran Tintle, Government Affairs of JCP&L, was supposed to be here tonight. He's tied up at a storm center up in North Jersey, is my understanding. That said, the commitment from JCP&L is to bring an entire project team in September to get into the details, if you will, on the project itself in a way that, you know, Jose probably can as a liaison, right? So, but that said, the way we want to handle this evening is when we get to public comment on agenda items, we'll allow the public to come up, and it's the typical decorum rules, which means you have 3 minutes to ask questions of the governing body. If the governing body can't answer, we will ask JCP&L to respond. If you can't answer, then we're going to table, we'll record the question, and we'll get an answer as quickly as we can.
Sure thing.
So that's how we're going to handle sort of the discussion. The one thing I do want to add to what you just stated, and I want to make sure I get this right. I think it said October 2022, 300 some odd mailers went out to residents most nearly impacted by the new infrastructure improvements. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And let me take one step back. Anybody that has questions related to the recent outages, of course, questions can be asked to the governing body. We can't answer, we're going to turn to you, and then if we can't get an answer this evening, we'll get one as quickly as we can. This isn't just about the infrastructure improvements. So in 2022, 300 notices went out. I do also want to add that in October, and when the zoning official met with JCP&L, that's because you guys were already on your way and approved for the project. There was no steps the town could have taken to prevent at that point in time. There simply weren't. This was approved by the Board of Public Utilities. And this is actually also an alternative solution, I think, as was mentioned, to the original effort back in 2016, 2017 to put monopoles along the New Jersey Transit line, if I'm not mistaken. So this is a result of the court's decision to prevent that. In October 2024, I believe it was October, Frank Luna, representative from JCP&L, came to the township meeting to talk to us about the infrastructure project. August 12th, 2025, September 9th, 2025, September 25th, 2025, then Mayor Brian Foster provided updates to the town on the project itself. In addition to that, on September 29th, 2025, then Mayor Foster did a mass call, text, and email to the town, informing them of the project and his walkthrough, if you will, on South Holland to look at the trees and what was going to be impacted. And then, since we've moved forward since then, per your statement, there was another wave of emails or of mailers that had gone out to impacted residents. And then, of course, when the project commenced, we notified everyone in the town. There was many mechanisms that as we have to let them know what was going on. So this was a process that followed the rules, followed the path, provided we're not going to have comments unless you stand up and talk. We're not going to violate the decorum rules here. It's a process that followed the rules from the township's perspective. I can't speak to what JCP&L did or who it went to. The township notified the residents many times over, both at meetings and through mass channels to let them know what was happening. In addition to, it sounds like what JCP&L also did to notify the residents as to what was going on. So this process followed the appropriate steps from our vantage point, was highly transparent from our vantage point, and it is where we are now. But it can be no mistake. This was the alternative to the effort that was rejected back about 10 years ago at this point in time. And there's a court order and multiple legal statements that reflect that. Not the least of which is the judge itself in the 2017 ruling. So so that's where we are. That's how it began, was the rejection of the original monopoles along the New Jersey Transit line. And since then, JCP&L seems has reconfigured, re-engineered, and carved the path in alignment with what the judge recommended, which was in alignment with what the Rage Initiative recommended. So all that said, if I can, I'd like to invite you to have a seat there on the side. This way, if anybody has questions come up, I can just look over towards you and ask you to answer them if we can't. And then, so Wendy, let's go to approval of minutes. I'm sorry, Mike.
Sure. The approval of minutes, I'm sorry. Okay. Ready? Okay. The approval of minutes for the June 9th, 2026 executive and public sessions and the June 23rd, 2026 public sessions. These minutes were sent to the Township Committee previously for review.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Bontempo?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Romano?
Yes.
Mr. Vanderham?
Yes.
Mayor Prevituto?
Yes.
Both sets of minutes have been successfully passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get to public comment on agenda items only, I want to give the governing body the opportunity to ask some questions of the JCP&L representative. for me, it actually, and you and I spent quite a bit of time on the phone over the past couple of weeks with the outages and everything. If you could provide an assessment or a discussion around the outages, you know, what are some primary causes? What are things that you guys are doing to do better in relation to that? How you've responded, how you've prepared for upcoming storms since then. You know, let's provide, if you can, provide an overall provide an overview of what's transpired the past several weeks with the storms we've had and the responses and why some of this happened in certain areas.
Correct. Okay, so I think, to highlight the largest storm that we've had was the July 4th weekend storm that occurred. Here in Holmdel, I want to say we started off that storm on July 3rd, so the night before, when the winds kicked in. It was heavily a tree event for us. We call it a wind event because the wind and heavy rain and moisture dropped a lot of trees as well as limbs on lines. So, what we always do after a large storm like this, we will go back out and do circuit sweeps, which we did perform. Right after we broke from our restoration efforts, we performed circuit sweeps, and that's generally where we start at the substation, and we patrol the lines all the way down to the end to ensure that there weren't any hazards that were left behind. I think a good point to say a lesson learned could be on the communication side. And that's to say, when we communicate with our customers, with your residents, in regards to the ETRs, that's something that we're looking and we're kind of dissecting. We're going to hopefully hold some good discussions and forums with our stakeholders and mayors to kind of discuss how we can do things a little bit better than what we've seen, because when there's ETRs that are thrown out there, sometimes the system will confuse residents. When we've restored power on a certain circuit, customers will receive at times a restoration page. The restoration page until the smart grid circuit is fully up and operational. And just to kind of say what that is we've installed smart meters on all homes. The full system is not completely operational where we can actually see the live data from our distribution center here in Holmdel. But once we see that, we'll know whenever somebody's out of power, we'll know when they're back in power. Until that system goes fully online, we're relying on the old system, which unfortunately, when a certain circuit gets energized, it will publish a page out to the resident or to our customers saying that they have been restored. And if they haven't been, it gives them the option to report the outage back. So this way we make sure that if we've restored anyone, a couple times it'll be what we call single no lights, where it could be one customer impacted by the service wire to their home. We wouldn't know that, if they were out until they reported it to us. So we're just looking at different ways of how we can be a little bit more informative and kind of reach the expectations of our customers.
And when looking at, and I know you guys had, I think, several 100,000 outages all over the state.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at Holmdel specifically, our first outage over the 4th of July weekend, I believe our ceiling was about, I think the number was 1,372 outages.
Correct.
What's the, for lack of a better term, diagnostic on that? Meaning, as you and I had discussed over that period, there are some outages that caused several hundred homes to be without power, and there are some outages that caused 1 to 4 homes to be without power. What's the primary cause of the larger, if there is one, of the larger outages and the smaller ones? The long tail, if you will.
Sure, yeah, definitely. The largest outages were caused by trees down on wires. Typically, just to kind of give you a little bit of background, is JCP&L has an aerial right-of-way that we trim on a 4-year trim cycle. Everything that is outside of our right-of-way, which is actually 10 feet around the wires, and I say aerial because it's not ground to sky. It's only an aerial right-of-way that we're allowed to trim. Anything outside of the right-of-way is something that we're not allowed to trim, but we will trim or remove a tree if it's identified as a hazard by our vegetation management folks. So in this situation, we had a lot of trees that fell from outside of the right-of-way and took down pole lines, took down wires. We had a couple of road closures that were the result of these trees and wires being live and down.
Sorry, can you explain the difference for me, if you don't mind? There's areas where you guys, to your point, have aerial coverage where you can do the work to keep the branches away from the lines, but there's also homeowners have trees that impact the lines as
Correct.
well. It's my understanding, and I want to make sure I'm correct in saying this, that the long tail effect, those 1, 2, 4 homes that go out, a lot of them, not saying all, were the result of sort of the residential tree coming down on a line or a branch, meaning it was a homeowner's tree.
Correct. It was a tree outside of our right-of-way.
Okay.
Or a branch outside, or a limb outside of the right-of-way.
Okay. So you guys have no legal authority or ability to do anything to those trees that are outside of your right-of-way?
It's a great question, yes. We can remove it with the homeowner's permission.
Okay.
Since JCP&L unfortunately doesn't, well, I say unfortunately, right, but we don't own any of the trees, so we don't have the rights to trim and or remove them outside of the right-of-way. That's something that we have to get a sign-off by the homeowner or property owner for that matter.
Okay. And then the ones where you do have right-of-way, just for clarification for the folks in the audience, you guys do trimming, deforestation, whatever you want to call it, every 4 years?
It's a 4-year cycle, correct.
And is that a 4-year cycle regardless of the type of town? Meaning we're still a fairly rural town with a lot of trees. And so are we in the same 4-year cycle as a town maybe like Red Bank, which has less, sort of greenery, if you will?
100%, yes. So it is actually the BPU who determines the trim cycles, which we're in compliance with. It is a 4-year trim cycle per circuit.
Okay. I see some of our state legislatures here. I'm hoping we can have that discussion. I know.
And maybe that's something that we can work together on, because for us ultimately is we want to try to make sure that we are taking care of the trees proactively.
Yeah.
If there's something that we can have some good dialogue together and come together to present something, I'm on board with that.
Yeah, and I think, look, I think one example would be a town like Holmdel or a town like potentially Cold Snack or towns with a lot of greenery should have a more frequent cycle than every 4 years. I think that's probably not a crazy conclusion to draw.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to be very clear, nobody's blaming homeowners for anything here.
No,
These are
not at all.
outages. This is what it was. We want an objective diagnostic of what happened and where and how and why. Some of it is within what I'm hearing you say is some of it's within your control and some of it is not.
Correct.
Okay.
But with that said, and this is a message for residents, if you do see a hazard out there, a potentially dead limb or dead tree, I urge you to you can report it to your governing body if you like, or just report it straight to JCP&L. We'll have somebody out to investigate it within 24 hours.
Okay. All right. With that, I'll turn it over to the committee. See if they have any questions. Deputy Mayor Foster, if you want to start and go around the horn.
Sure. Jose, thank you for coming in. Just a quick question. As far as we have a fair amount of residents that are on well water, so no power means no water as well. Is there some way that they're prioritized? Are you guys aware of who's on well water? Just walk me through that, please.
100%. Yes. So to start with your questioning, yes, there is a priority towards well water customers. They are identified in our system from when they set up their JCP account. That is one of the criteria that are asked. Now, when it comes to well water, let's just take a blue sky day, right? Not a day that everything's out of power. There is priority over those customers that are well water customers versus somebody who is not. Now, a lot of times, when we are in storm mode, if there is an outage on the circuit, we obviously have to address the circuit, or let's just say the substation. We have to address the substation first. We'll work from what I always call the beating heart outwards to ensure that they get energized, because we can't energize someone if, say, the front of the line is still hazardous and we haven't made the repairs. You're welcome.
And just to follow on to that, I'm sorry to interrupt. In terms of prioritization, well water is a good question. What about senior facilities? There's 55 and over communities. There are senior care facilities in Holmdel, Care One being one of them, Brightview, et cetera. How are they prioritized? How are they thought about within the JCP&L prioritization structure?
So they're in the critical facility infrastructure plan for us. We have a priority restoration unit that opens up whenever we activate our storms. And critical facilities are identified first and foremost by the county. The county it is in line with us, and we identify these facilities as being a priority to getting power back onto. Hospitals, Some senior communities, not all senior communities, they have to be classified as such that the county determines, and they do get to the front of the line when it comes to restorations, as well as, and I will say, road closures as well. I will identify the difference between a real road closure and an inconvenience. That's something, again, the county does address. Those are escalated through the ICS process from your local OEM, who will then report it to the Monmouth County OEM, who then works with somebody from JCP&L who they have in staff on hand, or virtual if that's, if it's not a large storm, who will work with our priority restoration unit out of our dispatch center to ensure that these are flagged for escalations. And then the county will determine the priority order for our restoration efforts.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Brad, do you have any more, or are you done? All right, so we'll go by seniority. Joe?
Yeah. Going back to the notifications to residents, when you were dropping off poles and specking out holes in people's yards, outside of the mailers, was there any sort of contact? Like, did you have somebody ring a doorbell, or was there a customer service agent that let people know that they were delivering poles and leaving them on people's lawns and such?
I unfortunately don't myself have that information. I will have that information. I'll jot that down as something that they'll want to know to follow up with you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
You good, Joe? I'm good. Gary?
Yeah, I'm going to actually just follow up on that notification comment, Jose. Thank you. So it said you notified roughly 300 or so residents for this project coming through Holmdel. Is that a large number of notifications on a typical size of this project?
Typically, on a project of this magnitude, it would be pretty average, yes.
Do you get any responses from those notifications? How often do you get a call back saying, what is this? Why am I getting this notification? Is there any kind of feedback that you get from the notification, or who's notified?
I don't have a number per se, but yes, we do receive calls. We actually we contract, we call them a public outreach, who takes on those calls, and they will document everything. They'll get the answers and reply back to residents.
And I guess this goes back to maybe what Joe was saying. Is there a safeguard that the notification actually gets to the right people? Like, how do you know it gets to the right address of a house that's supposed to have a pole in its yard versus someone else? Maybe it went to the wrong mailbox. Is there a mechanism to make sure the notifications get to the right people?
Since they are mailers, there's no way to find where the end result, if it gets dropped off, say, by a carrier to the wrong home, let's just say, we would never know that. But it is based off the corridor. So we send all those notices out through the corridor of the actual line.
Okay. And then as far as the project through Holmdel, there's different size poles. What goes into, I guess, you see the circular poles, you see more of a rectangular pole, and then you see the metal poles. What determines what, as far as which pole goes where in a typical project like this? Is it the amount of weight of the wire, the number of wires on it, where it's located? What goes into that sort of
I mean, that's a good
decisioning?
question. I'll try to answer it to the best of my ability. I'm not an engineer myself. Typically, these poles are always based off of what you're exactly explaining. They're the weight of the wires. There is different angles and bends that will affect a pole, as well as guy wires that are attached. So those will also determine what type of structure and class of pole will need to be installed.
Okay. And so all these poles have guide wires in addition to actually live wires? Is that
No,
how-
not all the poles, no.
Okay.
I'm just giving an example. So if there was, say, a T intersection where the pole goes from being straight on a street and then it comes off to another street, there is typically guy wires that are attached to that pole
Okay.
that will reinforce the pull that the pole is having. Now, some of these guy wires, they don't belong to us as well, because Verizon as well has a lot heavier wire than we do on our poles. So some of the guy wires belong to Verizon.
So that was one of my questions. So JCP&L obviously has lines going over these poles. Verizon does as well. Is there anything else? What other user of the poles is there besides the two
It
of
would
you?
be other telecommunications companies.
Okay, so do all of those companies then, just particularly to our project, the lines are still on the existing poles that are older. Do they all have to come in at different times to move them up to the new poles? How does that work? Or are you guys doing it for them? What's the process?
Great question. So the process is, whenever there's a pole, just a pole in general, this project or a pole that's being replaced, the way it gets done is whoever owns the pole replaces the pole. After which it goes by the priority of first JCP&L has to come in to move transmission lines if they are on the pole. After that, we do distribution. So the difference of the two, just in layman's terms, is transmission is like the highway. It's what services substations, it's a higher voltage. And then on the distribution side, it's what services, say, homes or businesses. So once we move our two facilities, then Verizon is alerted to make their transfer onto the new pole. And I will say, we will actually lop off the pole from the real estate of what we've already cleared down to whatever telecommunications is next up. The last person on the pole has a responsibility of removing the pole. Doesn't matter who owns the pole at that point. They also have to take care of the groundkeeping and backfilling.
Okay, so JCP&L may not be the user that's going to be removing the poles and cleaning up where the poles were.
Correct.
Okay.
Unless it's only a JCP&L used pole.
Unless that's JCP&L is the only
Yes.
one on that line or on that pole. Okay. And then, sorry, just one other question, and maybe on the storm response, and it's maybe more an optical issue for me. When we have that July 3rd storm, and it seemed like JCP&L did a lot of preparation. They brought up a lot of new trucks from maybe it looks like some other areas, some other states, and they were waiting in parking lots to be distributed. What's the process for that to take place? Because it felt like that whole weekend where a lot of people were out of power, you'd go over to Costco and you'd see a ton of trucks just sitting there or waiting. Like who manages sort of the usage of those extra services or workers that you have to make sure they're getting to the areas that need the most?
So typically we'll call them contractors, right? Contractors that come in, they come with foremen. If not, we provide them with a foreman or a site foreman for that matter. They're orchestrating where they're going for orders. Sometimes you will see them sitting in parking lots, and the reason for that is that they have a marching order to make a repair. They might be waiting for a clearance from our distribution center, because everything comes down to getting clearance from our DCC out of Holmdel, where we're saying it's safe to energize perhaps a repair that was made. And at times we'll have a crew who might have completed their repair. They have to stand down because there's other impacts on the lines, and we can't energize until those are complete. So we ask them to stay and stand by. Once we get the clearance from the other ground troops, then we'll go through and energize each section, and we do that in partial restorations.
Okay, and what determines sort of how many additional contractors that you bring into for a particular storm? Like, do you get know what kind of an expectation of what's going to happen, and then you bring them in ahead of time? Like, how does that work?
So we start monitoring first weather. That's our first step for everything. Once we've identified a moving cell that's going to go through what our engineering say will impact customers, there's a storm index number that we use, a computing system that will actually predict what we can expect in Jersey in terms of outages. We'll use those index models to start mapping out how many crews are needed. And so that's where we start working, and we start reaching out to our different partners. First, we start in-house with the different contractors that we use for just work, and then we look to other states. There's other bargaining units that we actually are cooperative of. So in the sense of, let's just say, in New York, if there was a large power outage, they got hit with something tremendous that we didn't, we would also lend assistance up there. So it's something that we all use. It's a tool we all use and share with each other to kind of help and map out what's going to happen and what's the plan.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Committeeman Bontempo.
Thank you. So a couple quick things. So walk me through just real quick, because I want to understand if I'm a homeowner, right, and my residence is on the path of this project, I'm going to be contacted by you via certified mail?
So I don't really have the full scope. That's done by our project management. It's not something that I'm actually a part of at all.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure of the complete notification process. I do know that mailers do go out, far out to just first let you know that we're going to be surveying the area, so that you're aware that there will be utility workers, possibly on site, just looking at things. Not to be alarmed. Typically, if there's some type of work being done physically on your property, you usually get some type of notice. I don't know that exact process. Let's just say, for example, if there's a tree we're going to remove on your property, you would have somebody who would actually stop by, and if they are not able to make contact with you, they would leave a door knocker asking you to call them for a follow-up. Same when it comes to, say, general landscape, that would be something that if we're going to disturb anything, we would do the same. Replacing a pole, not so much, because it's just part of our normal work operations. We wouldn't knock on every door just to say, hey, we're going to replace this pole.
So I'll be notified, and then I guess if you're going to do work on my property, right, and potentially there is a pole there, potentially there may not be a pole there today, right, based on the current service there. So does that mean that I have a utility easement on my yard? Is that what they'd only work in?
So a utility easement would mean that you would have not an aerial going over your property, but if you had a pole on your property, there is an easement on that property from when that pole was first ever installed.
Okay. And then let's say I didn't have a pole. You decided to put a pole on the property. Am I compensated anyway by GCPNL because I have a pole going up? Are you guys negotiating with homeowners and providing them financial, I guess, compensation for this?
I don't know the answer to that question. Ultimately, if you do have a new pole being installed, we would have to acquire an easement from you to allow us to put the pole there.
Okay.
So does it go into negotiations? I'm sure it does.
Were you with GCPNL when the Monmouth County Reliability Project was going on? Were you around with us then?
Unfortunately, not in this capacity.
Okay.
I stepped into this role down here in Monmouth County, to say about a year ago.
Okay.
So I was not aware of it or knew what was happening.
Okay. So did you say, I mean, I understood it, that this project, when we defeated that project and we all the towns banded together, probably got a person who was a mayor and some person that was fighting with us, we stopped that project. Was this project in lieu of that project? Because that other project was massive lines running through a lot of towns and, over, I guess, the railroad tracks, right? That was over the railroad track right away back then. It was probably about 11 years ago. Is this an exact replacement for that?
It's not an exact replacement, no.
Okay.
That project was kind of divvied up into 10 different projects,
Right.
this being a part of that.
Okay.
So instead of doing additional pole lines that we had requested back then, we're just using what we have already in place and just replacing it with new upgraded.
Can I ask I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to ask the question a little bit of a different way,
Okay.
if that's okay. Does this project, my understanding, so let me say it this way. My understanding is that the original project that Greg mentioned was done due to, at that point in time, a lack of compliance with certain federal regulation, if I'm not mistaken. Does this infrastructure project, as an alternative to that, get JCP&L in compliance with FERC?
I'm going to have to leave that to the subject matter experts. I don't have that answer myself, and I don't want to say anything that I'm not, knowledgeable about.
Okay. Sorry, I wanted to.
That's
have
fine.
a-
So, and thank you for coming here. I appreciate it because I'm learning a lot. So we're at a point right now where there's large poles going up or have gone up, lines going across. Who makes the determination? And you may not know this, right? Of we're going to go through Holmdel, we're going to put up poles, we're going to go into Middletown, and we're going to bury them, right? Like, who determines that? Do we have say in saying, hey, JCP, I know you're going to do the project, but I'd prefer you burying the poles because that's a thing. We actually had conversations about that with the other project 11 years ago about if you're going to do this, can we bury them? Because don't want them over people's yards. There was a lot of safety issues. Was that looked at with this for our town?
Unfortunately, I don't have that information.
Can that be?
That can be a follow-up.
When we
Yes.
come back in, I appreciate that. I just like to understand because people are asking me, and I don't have an answer, but I do know that was a conversation we had, and actually I think it was we had. So it was prior to the redistricting. Congressman Smith and his chief of staff actually came into Holmdel and spent a lot of time walking neighbors and walking the lines, and I remember that was a resident asked a question of him and said, you know, if you need to do this, can we bury the lines, right? So, because I know in New York City, which is not far away, they do a lot of burying of lines over there. Like, you know, I guess your counterpart would be Con Edison over there, where they bury all these massive lines. So I'm just getting curiosity, because I didn't know how to answer that question. It may have been looked at. I don't know, because I wasn't here. I was up here, and I stepped off for 2 years, and I just came back. So I may have missed that, but it'd be interesting and help educate our residents on kind of what the thought process was and why Holmdel went above and maybe, you know, parts of Middletown and Red Bank went down below.
Sure, that's something we could definitely follow up on. I will say this, just, we always considered, you know, is it beneficial to go underground versus overhead, just in general. I will say, just take note that if we were to do a complete pole line that would go underground, that would also fall on the residents, the homeowners and the businesses need to comply with today's standards and change the service that they have. They would have to, if they have a meter inside, bring it outdoors. They would have to go from being served overhead to being served underground, which means that they have to do conduit. They would have to hire their own electrician to do some work, which is costly. This would be, a cost that would be the bearer of the residents, or let's just say the account owners. So that is something we do consider, and obviously, I don't know what was considered for this project, but.
Yeah. I don't expect to have every answer, but if you can come back with that, because I think that's a good one, because like I live in an older section of Holmdel, but we're all underground, like all the lines except if you go out to 34, which is not far away, it's above ground. So there are, and a lot of Holmdel is buried. I think a lot of it is. So I'm just curious as to, I guess, why these poles, because someone actually said that when you go down Holland, the PNC Art Center is right there, right on the kind of on the side, kind of the back entrance there. Then you have the state police as a troop C or D that sits there, and they have a helipad there. So I'm like, if those metal poles are pretty big, right? At what point do you need to put flashing lights on those poles because you have an active helipad, that the state police could be using at any given time? Do you know like at what height that's required? Because somebody asked me, and I said I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that answer.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for coming here.
No problem. My pleasure.
Thank you. So we're going to open this up to, basically this is the part of the meeting where we do public comment for agenda items only. Jay, 1 second, then I'll call on you. And so we're going to hold to the typical rules of decorum, which are an individual can come up and provide comment or questions for 3 minutes. Please address the governing body. When you're done with your statement or your question, have a seat, and then if we can't answer it, we'll direct it to Jose to answer on behalf of JCP&L. If it's another agenda item question, I may defer to Mike or Chris or answer it ourselves. We'll see. So with that said, Jay, come on up. I saw your hand up first.
Last? I don't know. Jay Yanello, 18 Ladwood Drive. Mayor Impreveduto, I think I was at the meeting where JCP&L came in early 2004 or whatever to talk about the Monmouth reliability. I don't remember them articulating the size of these poles and how intrusive they would be, the number of support wires or whatever they're called, and the support poles, which are among the most hideous parts of this project. And respectfully, Mayor Impreveduto, your characterization that this was done all above board, this was done right, we were all notified, we were all well aware of it, respectfully, because I get along and I like you. It doesn't reconcile at all with your press release and your outrage during the election season. And I'll spare your quotes, but I'm having a hard time reconciling your outrage and horror at this project after you just said this was all above board and we all knew about it. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. In early 2025, I came before this governing body and said, what in God's name are those giant poles coming up from Aberdeen, Matawan, and are they coming here? Are we getting them? And you could go to the video. You guys had no idea about it. So that, again, doesn't reconcile with what you just said. Then, yes, Mayor Foster, at the time, stepped up, met with them, and realized, wow, this is too far along, but we'll do what we can do. So again, none of this is reconciling with the history. I know I'm under a gun here. Jose, do you know how much this project costs, the Holmdel portion? Oh, sorry. How much does this project cost, the Holmdel portion? What is the expected percentage reliability increase from this project? And over how many years will this be recovered in rates for customers? Will all of the existing poles that have been chopped be removed? Why is there so much variability, and I think the word is aperture, of what holds the wires? There's like 5 or 6, 7 combinations. Maybe there's some logic to it, but I think this project would look a lot better if there was some consistency in what holds the wires. Why are there so many tones and colors of the poles? Why are some of the poles now stained on one side but not on the other side? It looks ridiculous. They should all be the same stain. Why are there so many support wires on certain poles? I guess it's the angles you said. Some of them have 12 wires on people's properties. It's just completely outrageous. Why is it under the parkway near MSK? I believe it's under the parkway there, but not by the barn over there. And getting to, I think, Mr. Bontempo's point, in the most absurd cases where people's front yards are being destroyed by these monsters or these 12 support wires, will there be real compensation for the material impairment of the property values? Because respectfully, God bless you people, I wouldn't want to buy a house if they had one of these monsters and all these support there could be hundreds and hundreds, if not $250,000 more dollars of impaired value from these poles. And again, these are poles that in early January 2025 or whenever I came before here and none of you had any idea about them.
Well,
And
Jay.
I know you can't have response, but if answers are not adequate, it's not fair that we can't have rebuttal.
I'm going to respond, and I'm going to turn over to Jose to respond. So first, you'll remember, and it quickly deteriorated, we had a representative from JCP&L here in 2024 to talk about the resiliency project, which was this, and it didn't go particularly well. That was 2024. That's one. Two, in regards to my comments, just because this was an above-board process doesn't mean I like it. I mean, to be very clear, I've talked repeatedly and in public about what I think is I think it's a war on the suburbs, quite frankly, between the Trenton mandated housing, lack of school funding, the allowance of the utilities without township approval to do what they did. I think Trenton completely disregards the suburbs. At best disregards, if not is contentious with us. And I look at this as another overreach or infliction of something the state has put upon us. That's my view of it, right? So just because I don't like it doesn't mean we didn't do what we could to notify people. So that's how to reconcile my statement versus what I said earlier. So obviously I can't answer the questions around the costs. Jose, I don't know what you can, but I've collected here what I think I could. Do you know how much the Holmdel portion of this project cost?
So this is funded by First Energy, our parent company. It's not going to be something that is a rate recoverable. And that was one of the many benefits of this infrastructure investment. This is an investment that our corporate headquarters had said it needs to be done. So this is not something that it's going to come back on the ratepayer.
Jay, you can't, Jay, we're not going to have people scream from the audience. Jay, we're not going to have people scream from the audience. Listen, if there are follow-ups or things to be done, we're going to have the entire project team here in September. Okay, it is on the record. It's a public meeting. All right. So it is the position of JCP&L and First Energy that this project will not increase. It will not be increasing the rates of the residents. Is that the position?
Correct. It's not going for a recovery.
Okay. What percentage of reliability increase do we expect from this project?
I'm going to have to leave that for the experts. I'm not an engineer to have that information off the top of my head. But it is benefiting, just so you know, as I stated in my statement, it's 200,000 customers that will receive this benefit in Monmouth County, including Holmdel residents. It's a redundant circuit that's coming out there, so whenever there are large-scale outages on our sub-transmission side, we'll be able to provide power, rerouting it through a new circuit that wouldn't have been there originally. So where folks would have had a large outage, now we'll be able to throw them onto the new circuit that's out there so that power can be energized.
So are you saying it's a redundancy?
It's a redundancy, yes.
Okay. Okay. I think the question was, will the old poles be removed? I think I heard you say whoever's last on the pole removes it. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, so Chris, we've talked about this before. The other lines that have to move off of these poles are not just electric, it's telecom, Verizon, those types of poles.
Yeah, so I've already made several calls to Verizon. I have no response from Verizon, so therefore I will be reporting them to BPU as a complaint. The last time I did that in another town, I all of a sudden had some kind of reaction. Unfortunately, they do not return my calls.
Okay. I guess this is a question around aesthetics, the tones, the colors, the number of wires. How is that determined?
That's an engineering question. I couldn't say.
Okay. Okay. And I suspect you're not going to be able to answer a question around impaired value. So we'll have to table that one, I would assume.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Nag.
Hi, Sid Nag, 1 Tiburon Drive, Holmdel. I'm encouraged from what I heard today, but I'm still very skeptical. I have 3 areas that I'd like to address: reliability, deforestation, and communication. I was here in 2012 in this room, or maybe it was the senior citizens room, with your father, Pat, and with JCPNL representatives, Jim Markey, and folks after that. Greg may remember that. I still have the binder at home, the JCPNL Reliability Project. And till today, I still have outages on Tiburon Drive and the whole estate. Why is that? I'm still skeptical. So I'd like to get to the bottom of that. Secondly, I want to talk about deforestation. You rightly pointed out earlier, what works for Red Bank doesn't work for Holmdel. So if you're telling me, Mr. JCPNL, that you're going to deforest every 4 years, I'm sorry, it doesn't work. You cannot take a one and all approach, okay? Same with laying cables underground. Do you guys do any sort of study based on where you're seeing more of the outages, which part of the town is getting more of the outages due to trees falling on wires, and are you identifying those areas to be eligible for running cables underground? Are you doing any sort of study at all? I have a question around that, right? So maybe that's something we ought to explore, right? Same with deforestation. Do you talk to the owners of those homes where you need right of way? For example, the guy next door on Shank Road, if you talk to him, Mike Wilson, he's told me, I welcome JCPNL to cut down my trees, but they never come and knock on my door. How does that even work, right? And thirdly, communication. Your text system sucks. It doesn't work. Just the other day, I reported an outage. Is this outage you're reporting is at 1 Tiburon Drive? Yes. Then I type in stat. Are you reporting an outage? I just reported an outage. Thank you.
Thank you, Sid. So I think let me take it from here. Jose, I think what Sid's talking about is how proactive are you guys being in general, I think overall, not the least of which is looking at studies to determine where there might be, I'm going to call them hotspots for lack of a better term, but hotspots where their outages are more frequent. Does that determine a different type of delivery of electricity? Do you guys do any type of proactive studies to look at those areas and think differently about how we need to deliver service?
Sure. So there are annual studies that we do. We actually have to submit them to the BPU. For the largest impacted areas, we have to provide plans for reliability improvements for those areas that are identified. Typically, it's around 10 to 12 circuits that they look at throughout the state that they want to see improvements on. Specific to Tiburon, I can't speak on that matter, but we definitely look at the infrastructure, we look at where the reliability needs to be improved, and that's where some of these projects are always honed in on.
So how quick, so you have to, I want to make sure I heard you correctly. You have to submit to the BPU every year areas that are more frequently out of power than others.
Mhm.
That helps you determine where you need upgrades, if I'm hearing you correctly. How quickly do you act upon that, though, might be a follow-on to that, right? Which is, if you submit the issues every year, are you committed to resolving the issues in year?
Correct. So when we submit the report, we submit it with a plan, and that gets reviewed and approved by the BPU to move forward. So at the turn of the year, then we actually start the rollout. Sometimes we're able to dip in a little bit early and start proactively in the same year if necessary.
So you guys are, okay, so you guys are in a constant state of, should be in a constant state of improvement, is the point.
Correct. There's a reliability team and department that actually does all these studies.
And how, but it doesn't sound feasible to me, not feasible, it doesn't sound likely to me that if there's a serious, if there's an area, let's call it 100 homes, that are seriously impacted, it might take significant cost and engineering to remediate the issue. It's difficult for me to box how you'd get that done in a year, knowing how long it takes to do some of this stuff. Do you commit to a plan within the year, or do you commit to actually remedying the issue within the year, I guess is my question.
Both.
Okay. And then the last question I sort of picked up, other than, I mean, comments well heard on the system and everything else, do you proactively reach out to homeowners to get right-of-way clearance to their trees?
If it's in the right-of-way, yes.
When you don't have right-of-way?
If it's outside of our right-of-way, if it's identified as a potential hazard, say it's a dead tree, or we'll talk about the emerald ash borer, beetle that was out there and destroying a lot of that, we will proactively go out and go outside of the right-of-way. There has to be justification for it, though. We're not going to go and step out of right-of-way and go across the street to a live tree that's been already identified as being structurally fine. So that is something we'll look at, and that's where a big emphasis of what I was saying earlier is, if you know of an area that has potential for there to be some type of impact, let us know. We'll be happy to send somebody out to investigate.
So is another way to, let me ask the question a little bit differently then. I understand your point. I could drive all over town and find branches in the wires, right, in any neighborhood, right? Could a resident who has trees on their property, knowing that they're butting up against a power line, call you guys and say, we give you permission to trim our trees away from the lines?
They call us, they set up a notification in our system for us to come out and investigate. In the investigation, they would actually speak to the forester who does the investigation, and they will provide the results.
Provide the results, meaning trim the trees back?
Trim the trees, or let them know that, hey, this is outside of the right-of-way. That would be something that would be customer, that a customer would need to hire somebody for.
Okay, that was my question. Can they give you right of way to do that? And it sounds like the answer is no.
They can if it's something that's deemed potentially, hazardous to impact our infrastructure. Yes, but if it's something that we deem and we say, look, it's outside of the right of way, it's the tree is leaning and this is only an example. It's leaning in the opposite direction. It's not going to ever impact our lines. That's not something that we would take care of.
Okay, so there's potential for a resident to call in if the tree's leaning towards the lines,
Correct,
for example,
yes.
that JCP&L will come in and fix the issue.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Patty?
Okay, hi, Patty DeSaro, 20 Huntley. I just want to make it clear that I am speaking as a taxpayer only. Okay. My father would always tell me that if there's a problem, don't complain about it before you try to come up with a solution to help fix that problem. Always be thinking, he would say. Always help solve the problem. Good evening, Mayor, council members, representative from the JCP&L, and fellow residents. First, I'd like to thank JCP&L for being here tonight and for taking the time to listen to the concerns of our community. We all understand the importance of having a reliable electrical grid. Reliable power is something every resident, business, and school depends on every day. At the same time, it's impossible to ignore the impact that these new poles have had on the character and the landscape of Holmdel. Our town has always been known for its natural beauty, open spaces, and scenic roadways. Many residents feel that something valuable has been lost. Rather than spending tonight simply dwelling on what has changed, I would like to propose an opportunity to create something positive that will benefit our community for decades to come, and I'm asking for your help. I respectfully ask JCP&L to establish a long-term partnership with the Holmdel Public Schools by creating a Holmdel STEM and Energy Innovation Fund. This fund can provide grants to classrooms, support robotics and engineering programs, expend environmental and renewable energy education, purchase modern science and technology equipment, and so much more. The ideas are endless, but the opportunity is immeasurable. Who better to inspire the next generation of engineers, electricians, environmental scientists, cybersecurity professionals, and utility leaders than the people who build and maintain the systems that power our community every day? This would not simply be a donation, it would be an investment in the future workforce, an investment in education, an investment in the community that JCP&L serves. Infrastructure projects leave a lasting mark on a town. My hope as a taxpayer is that JCP&L can also leave a lasting legacy, one measured not only on poles and power lines, but an opportunity for our students whose lives are changed because JCP&L and First Energy chose to invest in their future. Years from now, I hope Holmdel students will be able to say that while these projects definitely changed our landscape because they're ugly, they also opened doors that otherwise would not have existed. They will remember STEM programs that sparked a passion for science, classroom equipment with resources that inspire innovation. That is a kind of legacy that benefits everybody here, and it brings a positive spin. And that is what I've always been taught to do. So I respectfully ask if the Township Committee can maybe help with maybe our assembly people to come up with a way to make this a positive thing, because the polls aren't going anywhere. But let's get something out of it for the kids.
Thank you. Thank you, Patty. I love that idea. I love that. I love that idea. Let me get, go ahead, Nathan.
My name is Nathan Brown, 251 South Holland. I did want to address a couple things. Obviously, I spoke a couple meetings ago, and my situation was a little bit unique, when it came to the JCP&L project, and how it affected my property. When it was mentioned, the right-of-way and the destruction of trees and landscaping, this and that, when it's outside of the right-of-way, you can't really do it without the permission. My question tonight is, what happens if JCP&L is the ones that's responsible for the destruction of your property? And then you submit a claim through JCP&L and they deny your claim, saying that they had the right to do that when it was clearly, I'm talking 100 feet past the right-of-way. Also, you had mentioned, or the rep here at JCP&L had mentioned that if there was a previous pole installed, that they just kind of went in there and just installed a new one, assuming that there was an easement. So were those easements checked? Because the previous pole may have been installed illegally under no easement. So my question is, can JCP&L provide all easements to every single property that was affected, where the poles were placed, along with the right-of-way of where they destroyed vegetation and trees, and who's going to be responsible for replacing those things? Because when my claim was denied, it was pushed. It was actually denied. I followed up to the claim person that denied my claim, and she said she had every right to do what they had every right to do what they did. I don't think she realized the scope of the magnitude of what happened, that a pole was left for 30 hours on my property on top of my vegetation, way outside of a right-of-way, with no easement on the front of my property. So I would like some clarification around that. I would also like to understand the relationship with CW Solutions, because that's who visited my property the day when I actually stood out there and said, you can't put this in yet. I have not been notified, because under the new NJSA 48.3, 17.10, a utility company must notify landowners at least 5 days' notice, personally or by certified registered mail, before entering an easement to install or alter structures. Can JCP&L confirm what notice, if any, and by what method was sent before pole installation, not only at 251 South Holland, but to all the other ones as well? I would like that clarification. And I would also like to understand the relationship between JCP&L and CW Solutions, because, like I said, the claim was denied. Okay, I followed it up, and then I within 15 minutes got a notification from CW Solutions saying that you were denied because this was supposed to come to us. But a JCP&L rep that Brian had put me in contact with told me to go through JCP&L to put a claim through. He didn't tell me to put a claim through CW Solutions. I don't even know who CW Solutions is. I now very well know who they are, but that was never mentioned before. So I would like some clarification around that piece there. And looks like my time's up. So yeah.
Thank you. So let me start from there. Jose, what is the relationship? I don't know what CW Solutions is. What's the relationship between JCP&L and CW Solutions? What is the relationship, and what are they tasked with doing?
I believe this is really a project management question because they handle all the different contractors. I know CW Solutions is sometimes contracted to bring in and to be the public advocate for one-on-one conversations that need to be had versus someone calling a 1-800 number per se. I'll find out a little bit more specific to this situation, along with this claim that was, rejected. I want to dig into that a little bit further afterwards and see if there's something that we can look into a little bit further. I don't like hearing that. I'm human just like everyone else, so I totally would understand if my property was damaged because of equipment being placed on top of vegetation, and I want to try to see how we can make this right.
Okay. And you have the name and address there, correct?
I didn't get the last name. I had Nathan Brown, was it?
Yeah, 251 South Holland.
I do have the address.
Okay. So you'll follow up on the denied claim.
Yeah, I'm going to have somebody follow up with Nathan, and I'm going to try to open this one back up. As far as the question on the easements, sure. I mean, there are easements for every single pole. Whoever owns the pole has the easement. So whether if it's JCP&L or Verizon or, let's say Comcast owns a couple of poles here and there, whoever owns that pole has the easement, and then we share what we call a real estate agreement on the pole with the pole owner, and vice versa within the different utilities. So, if it's a JCP&L pole, we can always look at the easements. If it's a BT pole or Verizon pole, that's something that would have to go to Verizon.
Okay. So I think the first question, the question that relates to it, I just want confirmation on this, is were the easements checked, right? Because I think the sentiment of the question was a pole could have been installed 70 years ago, but what if there was no easement? I don't know how that happens. I'm not arguing the point. I'm just, is it, do you know for certain that where these poles are that you guys have easements, I guess is the question. Does the company know for certain? I'm not asking you personally.
I mean, the company should know, yes. There should be a filed easement for every single pole that's out there that belongs to JCP&L. Specific to this project, could I put my name on it? No, who can? But ultimately, there should be something filed, not only in the company, but with the state for that easement when it was written.
Okay. Nathan, if I missed anything else, come up during regular public comment. I'll record it down, and we'll make sure we get it to JCP&L. Yes, Arch.
Archie Malonis, 2 Winding Brook Way. Thank you for coming. There's been a lot of talk about failure analysis in this and what went wrong, but what I want to do is talk about is how we can get some really, really crazy, stupid things fixed, right? And the first one, which is iconic, is the big metal pole that someone decided a good place for was right in front of Holmdel Park. This is an iconic park, right? It's well traveled. It's one of the most popular parks in the county. And here, you put the biggest pole right in the front, right where the entrance is. Now, what does that tell me about how JCP&L views its customer base? I mean, like, did they think at all about what they were doing? Okay, so that's one. Two is, I'd like to know what the remediation process is. I want that pole gone. You know, when I take my grandkids to Holmdel Park, I don't want the first thing that they're going to see is this pole. Right? So I think it's up to JCP&L to really find out what the most egregious errors here were and remediate them, and also not have us pay for it at the same time, because there's some crazy stuff. Now, I can understand poles on Route 34, right? It's a major I don't understand these humongous poles in the middle of a park. You got parks in front, you got parks in back, and you got this pole, right? That's all I have to say. That's what I want out of JCP&L. I want them to take a look at what they did and fix what they got wrong. Not everything is wrong. It's one of those things. There's the good, there's the bad. There's probably some pretty good, right? Because I know people lose power, right? And there's some awful stuff. And the awful stuff's got to get fixed.
Thank you. So I think those are good points, and I two sort of questions to summarize that, or maybe follow on a little bit, Jose. You know, do you guys have a remediation process for something that is, and I think we all find it particularly egregious to have that massive pole by Holmdel Park? Is there a process by which we can submit, evaluate, go to the BPU, go to First Energy, and say, you guys got to find a different, we accept that this was inflicted upon us, for lack of a better term. However, is there a way to remediate some of the more egregious pieces of it?
That's one I'm going to have to follow up on. That's
Okay.
a little bit out of my scope.
Okay. The other question I do have, and you may not know this, I don't know, Holmdel Park is a county park, so it's technically county property.
Correct.
Would that discussion have to be with the county? I assume there's very little we can do about it, or perhaps I call the county and see if there's something we can do to reach out. Like how would that work from your vantage point?
It's a good question. I'm not entirely sure. I do know that the county was involved on any county property and county right away for that matter. For the park itself, I know that they were involved in the planning of that pole installation, but that's something we'll have to follow up a little bit more on.
Okay, thank you. Ken. I promise we're not trying to tell you something.
It won't stop me from speaking. Is this on? Can you hear me? Thank you.
Sir.
Ken G.H. State Street. In full disclosure, I also serve as the Holmdel coordinator and co-president of RAGE. Since I'm limited 3 minutes, I'm going to just say a lot of things fast and right up front. Mayor, I find it really, really outrageous that you would try to go on record and deflect and blame a grassroots group, RAGE, because we defeated the transmission back in 2018. So just for the record, Holmdel Township was part of that process. Holmdel Township, when your father was still on the township committee, voted to join with something called the Joint Municipal Group and was an intervener, had a lawyer in there in the court case fighting against that. But for the record, I think it's important to understand the electrical grid consists of two systems, a transmission line and local distribution. What we were fighting back in 2016, which ended in 2018, was a transmission line. It was a backup to a backup of the main transmission line. The main transmission line was a 230 kV line that they're trying to put together. For 20 years, including through Sandy and Irene, they were out for less than 10 hours. What they're trying to do here is part of the local distribution system. The local distribution system is probably responsible for 99% of power outages. So what we stopped was a backup to a backup of a 230 kV transmission line. What they're putting up now is at 34.5, two of them on local distribution lines. So you need to understand that. Second of all, you asked earlier about the stress test. That particular solution was because of a national reliability test. It was supposed to, I've got 11 minutes, I'm going to go through that, forget that. Holmdel was part of that. The transmission line had nothing to do with the power outages, had nothing to do with the local distribution system that we have. Jose made a point early on to emphasize this was the replacement of equipment from the 1970s. This is something that they needed to do, and that's one of the reasons why it's not part of the rate process that's going to be charged to ratepayers. Even if we had built, even if we were not successful in 2016, and that transmission line gone up, they still would have to replace the local distribution systems because they were outdated and has nothing to do with the transmission line. I think it's just outrageous that you constantly still try to blame a local grassroots group to try to do it. You keep saying, well, when Ray stopped it, Holmdel Township was part of that process. I don't know if Jerry Scharfenberg is still here, but he knew that. So I think you just stop that, okay? Holmdel Township was part of that process. We collectively defeated that because it's outrageous. The judge put in there is that this is using an elephant gun to stop a gnat. Thank you.
I think it's one moment. I think it's an interesting point that you raise. I think that one, my point very simply being was that this was an alternative to JCP&L's loss back in 17. But I want to just address this for a moment. The judge's recommendation was you just mentioned 34.5 kV. The judge's recommendation was to replace or upgrade 3 to 11 34.5 kV older and potentially overloaded conductors within the next 2 years. Hire a neutral engineering firm from a list created with input from all active parties here too, and selected from that list by the board to undertake a new study of routes and alternatives inclusive of both HVTL and non-transmission, e.g. STATCOMs, as solutions to the P7 violation without regard to any upgrade, etc., etc. Establish an STS as a contingent and temporary measure to prevent peak load blackout of greater 700, megawatt loss to be armed for only the minimally necessary peak load hours. So my only point very simply being, you mentioned these are 34.5 kV. That's what the judge recommended based on that case. It says it right here. So, yeah, I mean, come back up there in public comment. I don't know what I'm missing. And I'm not blaming anybody. I'm simply saying you look at the root cause of everything, right, of any situation, right? This didn't, magically materialize 3 years ago. As far as I know, and I could be incorrect, the federal violation that JCP&L or First Energy, whoever was dealing with, is like 40 years old. Now, it's not awesome that it took them 20 years to even get to the point where they get rejected by a court in 2016, right? Or 30 years, whatever it was, right? So I'm not, there's no, perhaps I'm missing something, but you just said what the judge said, and that was the judge's recommendation. So, I don't know. Anyway, yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Kaz Klesko. I live on Morris Way South, and I have a few comments to make. No. My name is Kaz Klesko. I live on Morris Way South, and I know a lot of you here on the board have seen me post a lot of different things. I'd just like to make some comments. First of all, my family and I moved to Holmdel 36 years ago. The reasons we came here were simple. Great school system, quiet little neighborhoods, beautiful village-like atmosphere. I look around now and look what the hell has happened to our little hamlet. It looks like a disaster. Why? You sent out 300 notifications. How many citizens live in Holmdel? 6,000? 7,000? All of that affects all of us, not just the 300 people that have right-of-ways. I'm furious with what you've done to our town. You've made it a complete disaster. I don't know if there's anything that can be done at this point, but something should have to happen. And that tribute in front of a Holmdel Park, I don't think I've ever seen anything worse in my life. I drive up and down the parkway. I don't see poles this high. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do to help us to get back to what this town was really created for? Most of you are all newcomers here. I've been here for 36 years. This is the first time I've ever attended a meeting. This is how strongly I feel that you've destroyed our town.
Yep, and just as a reminder to that, in addition to whatever notifications JCP&L sent out, we had a JCP&L representative here 2 years ago. We had 3 township meetings where this was addressed last year. Mayor Foster sent phone calls, emails, text messages to the entire town as well last year, in addition to the other channels that we leveraged to let people know what was going on. So, yes, ma'am.
My name is Nancy Cagliostro. I live at 214 Pebble Beach Court in the Bow Ridge, Holmdel community. My first comment is about communication. When JCP&L wants something from us, we get an insert in our bill. And you make sure those bills get to the mailbox and to the right home. What happened with this?
Just, Nancy,
we
just
all
Nancy,
should have.
keep coming with me and we'll.
We all should have had an insert in our bill. Okay, it's as easy as that. I want to know if there's any project manager on this project at all. And I'm not going to repeat some of the things that people brought up already about the terrible polls, but also the destruction, this disruption. The trees were massacred, not deforested. Some of those trees are better down than in the condition they are now. Also, along with transmission lines that were put up, we're a town of only 17,000 people. We needed that many lines to give us the resilience you're promising us. Holmdel is littered with standby generators because of the history of JCP&L being totally unreliable. Is JCP&L going to guarantee to us now we don't need to buy any more standby generators? We had a storm on July 3rd. What was it, 1,300 people without power, and you're talking to us about resilience? That's insulting for anybody to classify this project as resilience. Those transmission lines are not retail transmission lines. They're for something else. They're high-tension wires. And along with wires, and you've got us wrapped up in those with no reliability, along with wires comes service. There's no service. All those trucks were parked at Costco while people had no lights. I'm in a community with 50 JCP&L streetlights. Never are they ever all totally working. Some of them just need ballasts replaced. At any one time, 30% of those lights are not working. And the only time we get service is when we call the BPU, who's not working that well anymore either, okay? So, to tell us, and also we would like to have somebody from JCP&L here who could answer the difficult questions and not, I can't answer that question. And thank you for coming. This is not an insult to you, but tell your company we're smarter than that, okay? That we need somebody who can answer the real difficult questions. And please have your company clean up after themselves. In the front of the landscaping of my community are all your old signs of men at work embedded in our landscaping, old bottles from their lunches as they work, okay? You know what it all tells me? There is no project manager at any level of this project. This was a stick it to Holmdel.
Thank you. So let's take it one at a time. What I suspect you can't answer. I don't mean that as a shot. I just can you guys do inserts into bills? Is there a better proactive way to communicate? What's the mechanism behind that, as opposed to mailers along the threshold where you think people are impacted?
That's something I'll bring back. I'll bring that back to leadership. I think it's a good suggestion.
Can you, so Nancy's in Bow Ridge. If there's 50 streetlights there, can you guys get over there and take a look at why those are out, or they're not all on at the same time? Can you guys send a crew to see what's happening there?
We definitely can. Is Boat Ridge is it a development? I'm
It's a
sorry for not
development,
being
development
aware.
off of Laurel Ave.
Okay, if you can send me the details, I'd be happy to follow up with our operational folks for the streetlights.
And what about the cleanup? You know, if there's, you know, we need you guys to make sure they clean up after themselves. What process do you have in place, and what can you do, like tomorrow, to get folks out there to look along the work area and get things swept up?
Yeah, so there is a project manager involved. I'm gonna get them involved probably tonight when I go home. I'll write them an email, let them know. If you can, just provide me again just the address of where this, you know, where this unsightly trash was left behind.
Nancy,
I'll be
leave.
happy to get someone out there to clean up.
Send pictures to
Please,
us.
that's
Yeah.
even better.
Pictures and roads. Just send it to us on the committee. Send it to us on the committee, and Chris as well. And then, what do you say? I didn't hear anything. Yeah, and I think, you know, to Nancy's point, I think there's a lot of skepticism here as to what these lines are for, frankly. So I think you said something at the top about them not being for data centers. Is that an accurate statement?
Correct.
Is there anything else they could be used for beyond that, other than typical delivery, transmission of service, etc.?
So, right, so this is the sub-transmission. This is what powers substations to substations, how they communicate back and forth. So this was a redundant feed, as I said before, to have us give us the option. So if there was, per se, say a tree that goes down on a different pole line, what we can do is re-energize, and what we're really trying to do is create a redundancy circle within the substations so that we can put power back and forth as needed to restore power whenever there's large outages.
When you say substations, are you talking Aberdeen to Red Bank? Are those the two substations
Correct,
specifically?
that's right.
And that's where this infrastructure project runs, from Aberdeen through to Red Bank?
They're substation to substation.
Okay. And so this creates redundancy between the two, is what you
Correct.
said? Meaning if a tree falls, people don't lose power as quickly, or aren't as likely to lose power.
Correct. Well, it gives us the option to backfeed a different route.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Solaro.
Okay. Kristen Solero, 5 Hot Brook Lane. So, JCP&L, thank you for being here tonight. They provided a very detailed timeline of events, so we know clearly that you guys were in touch, and so did you, the TC, regarding all of the township's communication. Why don't you guys publish that suite of information all in the same place so we can see it all?
We'll
And
pu-
sometimes, you know, when we're on the website, there's draft this, draft that. It would be helpful if only, like, if, say, under a button, all the final materials are in one place. That would be terrific. Thank you. So I'm interested to know if any of these communications had a drawing like this that would show how big these poles were going to be, because your job is to help people understand. And I don't think anybody understood what was coming. I don't know, Rocco, if you saw my, it's not drawn to scale. A little bit, yeah. And further with JCP&L, I'm not sure that you were adequately prepared. I don't know that you should have been here without knowing precisely how people are notified.
There was another individual that was supposed to be here as well with him, and that
It's-
was...
It's unacceptable. So, you know, in today's day and age, like the prior commenter noted, you know, we get all of these notifications, but the most important one, the bill, right? Like those come. But, you know, I know that the town, for some of the most urgent communications, has to send information via certified mail. I think this is something that would have reached a certified mail threshold. So maybe we should raise that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I neglected to mention at the top, I agree with you, we're going to publish the timeline and the information that came through on the website, hopefully this week. So, yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Bill Bartos, 16 Indian Creek Road. I lived here 20 years. 42 years of my career, I've been a chief in Bayonne. I'm going to share some experiences here. What's probably going to happen, this was a very small storm. You got lucky. Let me tell you, if it was a 2-day event, a nor'easter, leaves on a tree, we'd be weeks without power. We'd be weeks without power if it was any kind of major storm. Just my experience, this was a very small, weak storm, and JCP&L dropped the ball. If this was a 2 or 3 day storm, a nor'easter, or God forbid if it was January and we had a major ice storm, we'd be out with power for days. Remember Hurricane Sandy was 8 days. The other storm was 5 days. This was 3 days. So JCP&L, get ready. You couldn't even handle a small storm. Item 1, tree trimming. I get it. We beat this one to death. I identified a tree 4 years ago, me and my neighbors, and you just disregarded it. Guess what? It came down and took down 3 poles. So there it goes. I talked to the power company guys. There's abandoned utility lines on a pole. They're communications, and they're dormant. They're way down the poles. So 2 days, on July 3rd, 2 poles came down. On July 4th at 3 o'clock in the morning, July 5th, I hear another crash outside my window. That was the communication wires pulling down the 3rd pole. Lucky nobody was walking by, they'd be dead. Homeowner tree maintenance, it's pretty simple here. A lot of my neighbors are saying, well, there's a lot of restrictions, permitting and stuff like that. Well, maybe we should look at that. Promote residential power backup systems. Some people in the block have it. We try to help each other out. Maybe the township could look into offsetting the waiving the permit, the fees and stuff like that when they did after Superstorm Sandy, right? You want to put a generator in, maybe the electrical permit and the plumbing permit fee gets waived. It offsets because of the DPW and the first responders, what their cost is. But it's a beneficial that the community has power because you're not going to get it from JCP&L. Quarterly brush and branch curbside pickup. Chris, business administrator Beanie, I called him. The neighborhood was getting really antsy. Thank you so much. You really helped us out. After 3 days no power, it was getting really dicey. I called him. He got us all straightened out. And then DPW, your DPW is the best. They send the payloader that night, 2 hours after the storm, and cleared the tree right out of one part on Northview Terrace. Tremendous. DPW is great. Dry ice distribution. So a lot of the people have power, no problem. The other people, I was running down getting ice. Dry ice, that's what kind of gives out. All right. You want me to keep going?
No, we got your.
All right,
Thank you.
Look at it. You know how to reach me.
Thank you. So Indian Creek, Jose, you and I talked about that quite a bit when the power was out. Has anybody looked at abandoned utility lines on there? It sounds like, has that been cleared out completely from the storm? Do we know anything about that? And can we get someone over to take a look?
They put it back up.
They put the abandoned lines back up?
Yeah, he said they were going to cut them out and put it back up.
So he's referring to telecommunications. That's something that you would have to follow up with them.
All right. So, Chris, we're going to escalate.
So in between when I stepped out of the room, I had a little meeting with our assemblywoman, and she's already made contact with BPU just now. So
Thank
I
you,
should
Vicky.
get some responses tomorrow.
I'm glad. I hope they are. Utility lines. And I think it's a reasonable request for us to look at the sort of the fee schedule around some of this stuff. So I understand your point, Bill, and I think it's worth us looking at. Thank you. Anybody else for JCP&L? Or any? Yes, ma'am.
Ann Bontempo, 22 Grandview Drive, Holmdel, New Jersey. I just want to, this is just for JCP&L, so the rest of the agenda questions, if I have other questions, I still get another 3 minutes to come up for that?
You got 3 minutes, lay it all on us.
So no, that's a no?
That's a no.
Okay, so, JCP&L, you said this is a substation to a substation connection from Aberdeen to Red Bank. I saw the map. The Aberdeen station's here, the Red Bank station's here. The path goes down through Holmdel and then up to Red Bank. Why did you have to come through Holmdel since it's not the shortest distance between 2 points? Why did you even have to disturb any of Holmdel? Because it's not the shortest distance via the map you showed. Okay, ordinance 2026-17, lease agreement for Vonage Senior Center. The wording in there says long-term lease agreement. How long, and where's the lease agreement? And it's also supposed to be at a nominal cost. What is that cost? And how can you approve an ordinance and not have the exact cost or the lease agreement term? Is it 5 years, 10 years, 30 years? I know you can't go in over 30. And then under the ordinance 2026-16, data centers as prohibited use, under section 2, servability, it says provisions of this ordinance are non-servable. Why do they have to be non-servable? And if it is invalidated, the entire ordinance is invalidated. So why is that? Why can't it only be a section of it? Because I'd hate to see the whole thing thrown out and then a data center being able to be put in. Those are my questions.
Thank
you.
So Jose, first question, why didn't, that doesn't seem like you guys went to the shortest distance between 2 points. So what was the rationale for coming through the way you guys did?
So, I mean, this is definitely, up to an engineer. Unfortunately, I don't know that information, but we'll be back to revisit that one. Just understand that the circuits and pole lines, they're not straight distances. They go through many different towns. They wiggle just like a branch would, or almost the veins. So they do go through their own little routes. It's not about just point A to point B, what's the shortest distance. It has to be somewhere that it can be interconnected in the system.
Okay. Mike, do you want to answer the question related to the long-term lease and the nominal fee? And then we're going to need you to answer the question on the data center ordinance as well.
Sure. So on the data center ordinance, the language says that it's non-severable. I think the reason why we drafted it that way is that there's only 2 provisions in it. The first is defining data center, and the other is saying data center is a prohibited use. So if any portion of the ordinance fails, the entire thing doesn't follow if you had one portion but not the other. If there were multiple independent portions that could stand, if a section were invalidated, you would have a severability provision, but that doesn't really seem applicable here given that it's just a definition and the addition of data center to the prohibited use section.
But hit me with layman's terms on that a little bit more, Mike. I'm sorry. You got even me lost on that one. I'm
So
sorry.
severability is what you put in an ordinance if there are a whole bunch of different sections, and if a judge put a big X through one of the sections, you want all the other sections to survive. In this case, there really isn't a section that could stand alone by itself because you have the definition and then you have it just saying that's a prohibited use. It's a pretty straightforward ordinance, so if somehow there were a problem with any of it, we're simply saying that the whole thing would fail. If
When you say fail, meaning that if someone tried to get it through, it would not go through.
No. If someone challenged it and for some reason this was held to be illegal and the judge if you want to change it to a severability provision where the judge may be able to save it, I don't have a problem with that if that's the concern.
Meaning save the ordinance?
Correct. The judge could then in theory try to modify it or massage it in some way that the court found acceptable.
So what was the purpose of writing it the first way? I want to understand.
I think typically on an ordinance that doesn't have, like I said, multiple moving parts where you would envision one portion of the ordinance surviving but not the others, you would have a severability provision. Given that this is kind of one item essentially, it has a non-severability provision, but if you wanted to change that to a severability provision, I don't have an issue with that.
It seems there's minimal material benefit, but certainly not going to harm us to do so.
I don't think it's going to be relevant either way, because if a judge finds this to be illegal, the entire thing's going to be invalidated anyway, because we're only doing one thing. So I'm not concerned either way, but if that's a desired edit, that's fine.
If it's not going to, the simple question is it going to make the ordinance stronger or not? If it's not going to, I don't see a need to change it.
I'm okay with changing it. I mean, I think it gives the court more flexibility if somehow this got challenged. I'm not sitting around,
Can I jump in for a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I was a little confused regarding what you just said. So, for example, in 20 14, 15, we put in the redevelopment agreement for Bell Works. Data centers were allowed, right? It's part of it. So would this supersede that, Mike? Or does that still stand on its own?
I think that's an open legal question that would need to be addressed if we're asked that question.
Just changing the language, as the mayor said, it's not going to hurt us not in any way, because
I think the ordinance is going to say what it's going to say if it's enacted, which is that data centers are a prohibited use. The import of that change, which I think goes to your question, is not, to me, a question of the validity of the ordinance as much as the effect of the ordinance. So I don't think that goes to the legal issue of severability.
so so technically we're not superseding a redevelopment agreement that was already signed, correct? For at least 30 years, right? That it's in effect for.
Yeah, so what you're doing if you took this action is you're saying in Chapter 30, which are the development regulations, that data centers are a prohibited use. Specifically in the Bell Works context, I'm certainly aware that data centers are a permitted use under the redevelopment plan, which is effectuated through the redevelopment plan rather than, conventional municipal land use law zoning. I'm not in a position to offer a legal opinion on the direct import of the redevelopment agreement and the unique structure of them having a contractual agreement with the township relative to their property.
So we're controlling what we can control, and then anything else that might come down the pike is something we'll have to challenge.
I think that's right. I think that, the action tonight is establishing it as a prohibited use. If there are instances in which the township cannot legally enforce this change, then that would be handled. But this is the broadest stroke you could paint with a brush to make it a prohibited use.
Thank you. And Mike, the long-term lease agreement for the senior center in the 23 Main Street development, there was a question related to the term of the lease and the nominal fee.
Sure. So I think the term nominal was used in the context of nominal consideration, which is a legal term for when you sign a deed for like $1 or $10, and that simply means that, it's basically nominal consideration is a term that's used because if you don't exchange that $1, it technically may not be a contract because you haven't exchanged consideration. So there is no actual cost other than that type of dollar for the lease, and consistent with the redevelopment agreement, it is to be a long-term lease agreement. The terms of that are still being negotiated between special counsel and the redeveloper, but it does need to be a long-term lease, and I would imagine we would be looking to the maximum extent that we can legally obtain a lease.
So for the minimally life of the project?
Certainly, yes.
Well, the project is 30 years under the under redevelopment. It's still being worked on, but I'd say that I think the way we're approaching it is the minimum threshold would be 30 years.
And that would be consistent with, I believe, the library arrangement, which I think this is somewhat analogous to.
Right. Any other questions for JCP&L or agenda items? Lance?
How you doing, Lance Loopy, Line Road. Some questions on some of the items on the agenda. 2026-162 for the horn antenna, something about trying to retrieve something from Germany or something. I want to understand what the cost is associated with that. 2026-160, I'm confused. We're gonna front a loan to somebody for 36 months for $10,000. We're going to administer a loan over 3 years to collect $322 a month for something. I guess we cleaned something up and we're trying to get reimbursed for that. 2026-156, clarify with the Bethany Road Phase 2. I guess maybe that's the other half that's not being done this time. 2026-154, there's a shared service agreement, $139,000. Just want to understand what the savings are on that. There's a line item, $22,350, approximately reimbursement for Regency at Holmdel. I'd like to understand what that is. $8,000 for Slice Marketing. Like to understand what that is. $3,700 to our attorney in the month of May, $22,600 in the month of June, trying to understand the delta for why that big swing. I don't have the historical context, so maybe that makes more sense. Maybe the 3,700 is the anomaly. $1,200 open space porta-johns, like to understand that. $1,450 in legal fees for tax appeals. I want to understand what the outcome of that was. Did we lose? Did we stay flat? Where are we with that? $13,000 just in the month of June for land maintenance for open space. Is that every month? What is that? Is that just lawn? What is that? Dawn's Towing seems to get $175 for towing for their tows and $225 for one. All others are at $150, so I'm trying to understand why there's a delta there. Mirror replacement, $1,100. I thought I brought this up at the last meeting a month ago. We didn't have a meeting after that, and I don't know if that's a dupe or what. $3,300 athletic field supplies under the open space fund. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take it down the line here. Bear with me one second. So there'll be no cost incurred on the resolution requesting the horn antenna come back. It's a resolution requesting it to come back, and there's someone that we're in contact with that is offered to be the intermediary to try to negotiate that to bring it home.
I'm sorry to someone. I apologize. I don't mean to bring it, but someone was whispering in my ear, so I did.
Yeah. 2026-162, the horn antenna.
Yeah.
This is just a resolution requesting it basically to come back. There's an intermediary that we know that is offered to go to Germany and negotiate that, but we're not expecting to incur any costs associated. Chris, can you speak to 160, the debris removal?
That was the one, the loan, sir? Okay, so there was a home that burned down a few years ago. Unfortunately, the homeowner could not afford to clean the property to make it safe. The town cleaned the property, had it cleaned. He owes us that money back, and so how we're doing it is because he can't afford to pay it back all in one lump sum. He's being given a 3-year time frame with interest to pay it back. Once that's completed, he's planning on paying it back faster, but we gave him time, the maximum time we were allowed under the law to do that, and we didn't want to put him into a situation where he can't afford to take care of himself.
So he's paying back with interest.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Bethany Road, 156.
Exactly what Mr. Lupi asked and said. That is going to be the remaining portions of Bethany Road. That is another joint project with Hazlitt, so that we can get the entire road done and not worry about it for many, many years.
154, the savings associated with the shared service agreement with the County of Monmouth to provide iTax map collaboration center system.
So that is, right now, it's for us to have it on our own. That would cost us a lot more money. We've been doing that for years. They handle all the tax mapping and stuff, so we can, do the proper, when we do our taxing and stuff like that, we have them already set in a system. We agreed to that probably many years ago for past committees. This is just a renewal of what we've already been doing. There is no, it would be not feasible for us to do it by ourselves. It has to, because the information comes from the county. So that would have to remain there. It's just, we signed on to it years ago.
Okay, so this is a re-upping of that?
Exactly.
Regency reimbursement.
Well, the Regency reimbursement, I can't tell you exactly what that is, but I'm believing it's under the Kelly law. I'm assuming it's for streetlights. Yeah, streetlights. We reimburse the homeowners associations, get reimbursed for streetlights that we don't normally pay. They get charged them, and we'll reimburse it.
I'm reading this right. The attorney costs, which seem to fluctuate.
Well, attorney costs are going to fluctuate every month
Based on the amount of work.
Yeah, based on the amount of work. I cannot speak to anything that Mr. Lupi asked about in the bills list. He knows that I'll get to that tomorrow. I will take it and put it into my chat GPT the other way, and it'll tell me exactly where everything came from. So, but if I answer you now, I won't be correct. So.
All right. So for the record, it's the attorney fees, $1,200 open space porta-johns, tax appeal costs, lawn maintenance for open space, and the mirror replacement.
Yeah, I'll definitely check all those for you. I could tell you that the lawn maintenance for all our parks comes out of open space. So instead of taking it out of the normal tax base, that's how we save on that, is that it comes out of our open space tax. The other stuff I'll definitely look into.
Any other questions for agenda items only? Yes.
Sam Thacker, 2 Prospect Court. So just a little departure from the JCP&L business again. I just wanted to speak in favor of Resolution 162, which is on returning the radiometer from the Deutsche Museum in Germany back to Holmdel. So 62 years ago on a hill in this town, 2 scientists heard the universe. Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson pointed the horn antenna towards the sky, and they heard a faint hum that they could not explain. That hum was from the Big Bang, and it was the remnants of the Big Bang, and it was the first solid proof of how the universe was formed 13.8 billion years ago. They won a Nobel Prize, as some of you may know, for that discovery. And thanks to the efforts of the people of Holmdel, that antenna is still here to this day. And soon it's going to anchor Robert Wilson Park, and people from all across the country will be able to come to Holmdel and stand where that discovery actually happened. But one crucial piece is still missing, which is the radiometer. It's in a museum warehouse, not even being displayed in Munich, thousands of miles away from the antenna that it was built for. Penzias did have his reasons for sending it to Germany. He was a Jewish child that was born and grew up in Munich in the 1930s, and he escaped the Holocaust. And he wanted to send the radiometer back as a reminder to Germany of what it lost during the Holocaust. But the antenna and the radiometer, they're meant for each other. Apart, they can only tell half the story, but together, I believe that they can, show the full picture to visitors of Robert Wilson Park and Holmdel residents. Resolution 162 asks the museum to send the radiometer back home right in time for the grand opening. And with the radiometer, Robert Wilson Park will have something that no other place on Earth has, which is the exact tools and place where the foundation of this universe was revealed to us. Holmdel has already done the hard part and saved the antenna and the surrounding land from the condo disaster that was going to happen. So let's take the next step and bring this radiometer home. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other questions on agenda items only? Going once, going twice. Let's move to a vote. Can I get a motion?
Moved. Mayor, would this be on the consent
yes.
agenda?
Oh, I'm
first?
sorry.
It's okay. We have a
Yeah.
couple sections.
Can we, yes, let's, motion to vote on the consent agenda.
And that's resolutions 26, 152 to 162.
That's correct.
Moved. Second.
Mr. Bontempo?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Romano?
Yes.
Mr. Vanderham?
Yes.
Mayor Impreviduto?
Yes.
Okay, resolutions 2026-152 through 2026-162 have all been successfully passed. Thank you.
All right. Motion to vote on 2026 163 to 164.
Moved.
Second.
Mr. Bontempo?
No.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Romano?
No.
Mr. Vanderham?
Yes.
Mayor Impreviduto?
Yes.
Okay. Resolutions 2026-163 and 164 have been successfully passed. Thank you. Next is introduction of Bond Ordinance 2026-15, which is providing for improvements to various township roads by and in the Township of Holmdel in the County of Monmouth, State of New Jersey, appropriating $650,000 therefore, including a $584,000 grant from the New Jersey Department of Transportation, and authorizing the issuance of $396,416 bonds or notes of the township to finance part of the cost thereof. This motion is to adopt on first reading, publish on the Holmdel Township website, and set the public hearing for August 11th, 2026.
Can I get it?
Second.
Mr. Bontempo?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Romano?
Yes.
Mr. Vanderham?
Yes.
Mayor Impreviduto?
Yes.
Bond ordinance 2026-15 will be set for public hearing. Next is introduction of ordinance 2026-16, which is an ordinance establishing data centers as prohibited use. This motion is to adopt on first reading, publish on the Holmdel Township website, and set the public hearing for August 11th, 2026.
And Mayor, I'm just going to suggest that based upon the colloquy earlier, that if there's a motion to be made, that it be to introduce it with amendment to revise the severability clause to provide for severability.
Okay. I'm comfortable with that. Do we have a motion?
Move.
Second.
Mr. Bontempo?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Romano?
Yes.
Mr. Vanderham?
Yes.
Mayor Impreviduto?
Yes.
Ordinance 2026-16 will be set for public hearing. Thank you. The next ordinance is ordinance 2026-17, which is an ordinance authorizing lease agreement for senior center at the 23 Main Street property. This motion is to adopt on first reading, publish on the Holmdel Township website, and set the public hearing for August 11th, 2026.
Moved.
Second.
Mr. Bontempo?
And we'll have the timeline filled out, Mike, by the 11th meeting.
Yeah, for final adoption, the full lease agreement will absolutely be there for you to evaluate.
And you'll make sure of that, Wendy?
I'll make sure.
Thank you.
You're
Yes.
welcome. Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Romano?
Yes.
Mr. Vanderham?
Yes.
Mayor Impreviduto?
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance 2026-17 will be set for public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Now that we've gone through that, Jose, I think we can cut you loose now. Thank you for coming in. We will have the team back in September. We'll pick hopefully the first meeting, so we'll be in contact on that. Appreciate you coming in and being accountable. There's a lot of questions still to be answered.
Sure.
Right, but you know, we expect them to be in the coming days and weeks. So thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for.
All right, Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have a few things, nothing, too long. As you are aware, we've been working on the crossing guards and the needs for them. We've identified 14 spots over the 4 schools. That doesn't mean we need 14 crossing guards. It just means there's 14 of those set sections throughout the period in the morning and the afternoon. We have identified other areas where we want to put some crosswalks. Tomorrow or the next day, our hope is to get our bid out for crossing guards. We have those sections and we'll bid it out to a company. It's a lot easier to use a company. They kind of handle everything from there, including any kind of training, equipment, substitutions. So we're going to be bidding it out. My hope is to have everything back for the August 11th meeting. On that same night, we are having the consulting engineer, Kramer Engineering, come in to explain what he's done and how he's mapped it out. He's also mapped it out well enough, and he has some experience with it to work on what's called Safe Route to School grants, which could help us improve some infrastructure paid for by state grants. Our goal is to tackle whatever was going to come our way. So we look forward to him coming. I know we wanted to have him come tonight, but I think we had the JCP&L was enough for tonight. But he's ready to come, and he's going to speak to everything. And then the other item I wanted to bring up to the committee's attention is the health benefits report came out for our employees, and of course it wasn't good. It never seems to be good. We're looking at anywhere from a 17% increase to up to a 29% increase on plans that we actually are using right now because it was a savings, and it seems that every time we find a savings, the state takes notice of it and then raises it that much higher. So my hope is that we will find another way like we did last year. I'm working towards that. I'm calling for Experience ratings, again, thank God this year we don't have to pay the $2,000 to the state to release that to us. It's our year for a free one. I also have spoken to our legislators, and we are putting together a narrative to send up to them because we believe that the state is wrong, or the state actuaries are wrong, and they're using improper numbers to decide how much they should raise our fees. We're hoping to get some help at that level. We look forward to their help, and I'll have more as time goes on. But thank you.
And Chris, do we have a sense of, in dollars, what that 17% increase could look like, ballpark?
So at this point in time, health insurance for a family using a high deductible plan and a difference card, meaning that we cover the difference, is $34,000 a year. That was a savings of all the other plans. They raised that this year to $58,000. Okay, so that's a split between the employee and the town. It was a way for us to avoid the big increases, and we did that, and they didn't like it, so that was the only one that went up that much.
And that was a per family cost that you just laid out.
That is a per family cost. The highest plan is closer to $80,000 now.
Okay, thank you. Counselor?
No update, Mayor, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Let's go to the committee. Mr. Bontempo.
Thank you. So information technology update, July cybersecurity threat assessment. The NJ KIC that I've been mentioning issued their July 2026 cybersecurity bulletin this week, which highlighted key points for New Jersey residents. There's an ID.me scam. A phishing campaign is impersonating ID.me via emails sent from an Argentine, which is a .ar domain, with the subject line, new financial document available. The risk: clicking the provided link or attachment directs users to a fraudulent website that steals sensitive information, including social security numbers and photos of government IDs, driver's licenses, or passports, to commit identity theft. Recommendations: do not click on links or open attachments in suspicious emails. Instead, navigate directly to official websites, verify sender information through official channels, enable multi-factor authentication, MFA, and report any malicious activity to the New Jersey KIC and FBI's IC3 site. New Jersey KIC has a fall internship program. NJ KIC's internship program is an excellent way for students to gain hands-on experience in cybersecurity. Their fall internship program is a paid internship opportunity for college and or graduate students conducted in person at their Hamilton, West Trenton, or Newark offices during standard business hours. Interns are limited to 21 hours per week with flexibility between Monday and Friday. The fall internship program is a 12-week program from September 14th through December 4th. The application window is now open and closes on July 24th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. For more information or apply, visit cyber.nj.gov. As always, residents are encouraged to report malicious cyber activity directly to the NJ KIC via their official website and exercise caution when interacting with emails from unsolicited vendors. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Romano.
Right, starting with community development. There is a community focus group opportunity, and residents are wanted. The Holmdel Township Community Development Department is seeking residents of all ages to participate in a focus group at the Bellworks Township Room this August. Our municipal software provider, GovPilot, is preparing to launch a new resident portal and is looking for valuable feedback from the people who will use it most, our residents. Participants will have the opportunity to explore the new portal during a guided demonstration, share their thoughts on its ease of use, identify anything that may be confusing, and suggest features or improvements before it is officially launched. Lunch will be provided by GovPilot as a thank you for your participation. If you are interested in participating, please contact Tara Buss, Community Development, at 732-946-2820, extension 1305. Holmdel was selected for NJ Homes Affordable Building Club program. Holmdel Township has been selected to participate in the NJ Homes Affordable Building Club, which is known as ABC, a competitive program sponsored by the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs, which is known as the DCA. Holmdel is one of only 30 municipalities statewide chosen for this initiative. Participation in the program will provide the township with enhanced technical assistance, specialized training, and opportunities for pre-development funding to strengthen affordable housing planning and implementation. There's a tree permit reminder. Following the recent storms, community development has experienced a significant increase in tree removal permit applications. Residents are reminded that pursuant to NJDEP requirements and the township's tree removal and replacement ordinance, a permit is required for removing a tree measuring more than 6 inches in diameter or a street tree measuring 2.5 inches or greater in diameter. Please note that no permit is required for trees that have fallen as a result of a storm. Applications and additional information are available on the township website under the zoning section. There is a new proposed horse ordinance. Community Development is currently drafting a proposed horse ordinance to establish clear standards and regulations for residents interested in owning or boarding horses within the township. Once completed, the proposed ordinance will be presented to the Township Committee for review and consideration. From the Holmdel Library, we have a couple new programs for children. Stage a Story Workshop will be held on Monday, July 27th from 3 to 3:45. And there is a Peas and Carrots concert, which will be held July 22nd at 11 a.m. The July Book Club, the Holmdel Book Club, will be meeting on August 11th at 10 a.m. to discuss the book The Island of Sea Women by Lisa C. From Public Works, there is a special supplemental brush collection due to the storms. Due to the storms in early July, the township has scheduled a supplemental brush collection. The collection for sections A and B began yesterday, July 20th, and will run through the week. The collections for sections C and D will begin on July 29th. The next large item drop-off event will be held Saturday, August 8th in the red and blue lots of Bell Works from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Residents should enter through the American Way entrance. That is all.
Thank you. Mr. Manahan.
Thank you, Mayor. The only update tonight is from the Green Team. The Green Team is currently planning for several upcoming tabling events that has been invited to attend. Please be on the lookout for them. The team has also returned to work on their local government energy audit. There'll be more information to come on that. The team is organizing and beginning work on the short-term goal initiatives from the approved community energy plan. The next Green Team meeting is August 3rd, Monday at 7 p.m. in Town Hall. Interested residents are invited to attend and contact Green Team at holmdel.gov with sustainability questions or suggestions for Holmdel Township. There are many ways to help, large and small, especially now that the community energy plan has been approved and is in motion. So if you're interested, please reach out. That's it.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. The Holmdel America's 250th Committee presents Holmdel's Revolutionary War Patriots and the Dutch's Influence on American Independence. Join Holmdel resident and Daughters of the American Revolution member Michelle Donnelly as she speaks on Holmdel's Revolutionary War Patriots and will also focus on how the Dutch were an integral part of America's independence. This will be held on Sunday, July 26th at 3 p.m. at the Senior Community Center. The presentation is free, but please, pre-registration is suggested and can be done at the Recreation Department's Rec Desk page. Holmdel's annual Harvest Fest will be Saturday, October 10th from 12 noon to 7 p.m. at Bayonet Farm. The day will include food vendors, beer and wine garden, live music, wagon rides, inflatable and mechanical rides. New this year, a pie eating contest. The night will conclude with the showing of It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown and fireworks. This year's event will also have some special 250th anniversary elements added to it as well. Registration is open for the August session of the Youth Gone Running Camp. Campers will be split into 2 camps, those entering grades 3 and 4, and then those from grades 5 through 10. Younger campers will learn the proper running form, useful stretching and warm-up drills, and will play fun running games. The older campers will learn racing strategies and starts while perfecting their running form. This will be led by NCAA college coach Jordan Brannon and USATF coach Conchetta Davi. The program is held at Cross Farm Park on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings from August 4th through the 27th from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Registration as well can be done in person or at the Recreation Office or online at the Rest Desk page. Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you. So I want to take a moment to recognize the upcoming retirement of senior mechanic Keith Doyle. Keith has served our Department of Public Works for the past 30 years. By keeping our municipal fleet, emergency apparatus, and service trucks running smoothly, he helped to ensure that Holmdel residents always receive the vital services they rely on. Thank you, Keith, for 3 decades of hard work. We wish you the very best as you enjoy your retirement with your family and friends. It's all right. I'm happy to announce that Holmdel will once again host the Mobile County Connection event, bringing valuable Monmouth County services directly to our community. The event will take place Wednesday, August 5th, 2026 from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Holmdel Library. Residents can access direct assistance, ask questions, and gather important information from key county agencies without having to travel to main county offices. Representatives from the following offices will be on site: County Clerk's Office, passport applications, notary services, and election information provided. Sheriff's Office, community outreach, public safety resources, and residence services information. Surrogate's Office, guidance on estate planning, wills, and probate process resources. Division on Aging, Disabilities, and Veteran Services, support programs, benefits guidance, and community assistance for local seniors, individuals with disabilities, and veterans. The new e-bike law in the state came into force on July 19th. Holmdel Township Police Department is committed to protecting our younger residents. The goal is prevention before enforcement, and most importantly, prevention before tragedy. The requirements of the law: minimum age 15 years old for low-speed e-bikes and mopeds, 17 years old for motorized e-bikes, dirt bikes, and motorcycles. The helmet is required regardless of age. You need a license or a permit, MVC registration for all e-bikes, and insurance is required for all motorized bikes, including mopeds, but not required for low-speed e-bikes. Please reference HTPD social media or website to see a guide on e-bike laws. If you would like a one-on-one visit at your residence to help determine whether your child has an electric bike, motorized bicycle, or electric motorcycle, contact Patrolman Matthew Minoski in the Traffic Safety Unit at mMinoski, MMENOSKY, at holmdelpolice.gov. The next Goal Zero enforcement campaign is on Wednesday, July 22nd, between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m., and Holmdel officers will focus patrols on Highway 35 and Laurel Avenue. Holmdel First Aid Squad's been keeping busy between our response to emergencies and being present at events in town. The squad provided EMS coverage at both the Flag Day 5K event at Bell Works and the Bell Works fireworks display. Holmdel First Aid Squad also hosted a basic first aid and CPR class at our Crawfords Corner Road building. This was attended by a handful of residents interested in learning the basics and seeing some behind the scenes of what their neighbors on our squad do as volunteers. We hope to schedule a similar event this fall. The First Aid Squad's also happy to share that the squad's membership has increased significantly over the past few months, and their nightly duty crews are up to 6 riding members serving each night, plus cadets. They're looking for and accepting new members, so visit the website, check social media, or stop by when you see them out at events in the community. Cadet info sessions will be held at the end of August, and in early September, dates will be posted on social media. Wendy, that's all I have. Can we move to public comment, if you wouldn't mind reading your...
Isn't National Night Out coming before our next meeting?
August 4th it is, yes, that's right. National Night Out.
Did we say that yet?
We didn't, I don't think we did. That's
You
right.
wanna
So
do it?
National Night Out, thank you. Missed it on this one. National Night Out is August 4th. We do it every year at Town Hall. I'll check the times that it starts. Usually we start around 6. We usually do about 6 to 8. But we'll post it on the website, make sure everybody knows, and thank you, Greg, for the reminder.
In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, this is a public comment period for public comment on any governmental issue of public concern. In accordance with Resolution 2022-17, public commenters are asked to raise their hand and wait to be recognized by the mayor before coming forward and making public comments. Commenters are asked to state their full name and address before commenting. Public commenters are limited to 1 comment, not to exceed 3 minutes. Comments should be directed to the mayor and the township committee. If appropriate, the mayor may direct and recognize a staff employee or professional to respond to comments either at this meeting or in writing after this meeting.
Thank you, Wendy.
You're welcome.
Any public comments? Nathan?
Nathan Brown, 251 South Holland. I wanted to just get some clarification. Obviously, there's been, a lot of towns dealing with this data center issue. And I know it's been brought up several times here tonight, but I just wanted to know, I know it's been asked in prior meetings, what you guys are doing, what action steps are you taking in regards to banning data centers in Holmdel, period? I know we just talked about the 23 Main, all that stuff, but to get it to never be able to come here, are we taking those steps?
Yeah, and that was the ordinance we introduced tonight.
Oh, okay, I thought that was just related to the 23.
No, that was for the entire town.
Okay.
So that was a ban for the entire town.
Okay, that was my.
And so, and just the way it works, and sorry, I shouldn't be interrupting you, I should let you go through, but I want to just get this out there. We introduced tonight, at the next meeting, we vote to approve.
Okay, perfect, that's great. Thank you for that. When I was speaking to, about the JCP&L and the 5-day, certified letter notice, that is a law. And I want to understand, from a township committee, what sort of protection, because I do feel like I'm fighting this on my own. Mr. Foster here has provided me some support. He's connected me with the JCPL rep, which ultimately wanted to put in a claim, which I had already done that, which got denied. And now it's escalating because the more and more I dig, and you were referring to the county, holding the, the tax maps. I went through hundreds of tax maps over the last week, and I've got every single tax map of the entire town of Holmdel and every easement in the entire town of Holmdel. There's not an easement on the front of my property. So I want to understand, what support am I going to get from you guys to help me fight this battle with JCPL?
If you're done, they'd have a seat and I'll respond, yeah.
Let me make sure that was all I had for this one. 1 second. And then there was a follow-up from the last meeting that I had asked, about or you had said that you were going to inquire with JCP&L to see what specific residents were notified and how they were notified. They spoke about 300 or 360, whatever he said the number was, residents notified. Who were those residents? And who were the residents that got the text message from Mr. Foster, last year or so? Because I don't recall ever getting that text message. I don't ever remember getting mail in my mailbox, nor did I get a certified letter. None of that. No phone call, no consultation. And I have that documented from CW Solutions, which is actually responsible for going around and talking to these homeowners. He told me in documentation that he got my house mixed up with 251. Unfortunately, 251 has 2 poles in their yard too. So I don't think he got a mix-up. I think he just missed me. So, and I wanted to explain further on the easement process, because I know it sounds odd that I just wouldn't have an easement. Where I live, I get 20. Where I live was originally one farm. Okay, it was at 255, owned all 3 lots. Okay, and 1998, it was split into 3 lots. Okay, at that time, they did not put easements on the other 2 lots. The easement was still on 255 Holland. It's Holland, not South Holland. For some reason, their address is Holland. That's very odd too. But nonetheless, so I want a further research done on this, on how this happened, and whether or not that previous pool does have an easement.
Understood. So have a seat and I'll respond. Yep. So I'd say 2 things, Nate, specifically. One, I asked Jose directly, and I asked other members of JCP&L directly about your specific residence. They won't provide me customer information, even if it is related to specific contacts of those customers. What I can do and what I will do, Jose and I talk frequently, especially given the outages over the past couple weeks. He committed to getting back to you to get support. I will commit to you that I will stay on him to make sure that happens. And to the extent I can get someone from JCP&L to speak to you directly about whether or not they contacted you, I'll push on that level too. So that's where I can offer help and assistance there, and I'll make sure I do that. Okay. In relation to the easements and those types of things, look, I think I don't have an answer for you other than when I think we're going to get much better. We're going to have much deeper knowledge of things when the entire project team comes in September. And just for context for everybody, myself and Chris spoke to JCP&L, I think it was on Monday, and their proposition to us was to come in September with the full project team after they had committed to coming in for this meeting. And I didn't want to wait. So I don't know if that was a good move or a bad move, frankly, because I know there's a... Okay. So I don't know if I know there's a lot of questions that couldn't be answered this evening, but I thought it was important for them to get into the seat and be held accountable. That was my opinion. Maybe it was the wrong shot, but knowing that they're going to come here at the beginning of September as well, I figured let's get them accountable now while we're in the throes of some of these outages and things like that, and then we'll get the deeper responses and information when they fly their team in to meet with us. So that's how this came to be this evening. I'm not going to lie, it was a fairly aggressive call Chris and I had with them because we were pretty angry. And so we placed a lot of urgency on doing that. Again, however, that, for better or for worse, that was the shot we called. So, and so with that, Nate, I expect them to be able to answer questions around easements, around the project, around how they delivered poles or didn't deliver poles, what that means. And my hope is by then, with continued contact, we'll hopefully get a resolution to your situation. Anyone else? Public comment? Yes, sir.
My name is Franco Rousseau. I'm a resident at 16 Spring Valley Drive in Holmdel, New Jersey. I am also the owner of Oak Hill Barn LLC at 177 Stillwell Road. The property that you were discussing for the first 8 minutes of this meeting. So I think it's fair to give me more than 3 minutes of time, since you had more than 3 minutes of time.
Everybody gets 3 minutes.
Okay. So to clear up the facts, you filed an injunction to not close my farm, that I was not acting as a farm, because as you stated in the previous council meeting, you said it says farm, but we're not a farm. What the superior judge decided was that we are arguably a farm, and that he had no jurisdiction to rule on whether or not we were or were not a farm. After that ruling, Mighty Mike over there didn't like the ruling, so he ran to the appellate court the same day and filed an appeal, which was also denied. So the injunction is gone. There's no litigation. Whatever you're going to refile now is basically just more taxpayer money that you're spending. So you're not only spending, I'm actually spending my own money to sue myself. That's what you're doing, because I'm also a taxpayer in this town, which makes no sense, because the original problem stemmed from zoning not allowing me to act as a farm. So any of those violations came from and started from the wrong interpretation of what my property is. So now that I'm going in front of the right board, which is the Ag Board, which is Superior Court Judge ruled was the right place to go, you plan on fighting me there as well, because otherwise there's nothing to fight about. The barn, don't forget, these are two animal structures. One has donkeys in it, one has goats in it, that you're wasting taxpayer money on to make sure that they're safe enough for animals to live in. In your beautiful picture that your inspector took, if it was that dangerous and he was on my property, he should have inspected the barn instead of taking pictures. And they've come multiple times. You've flown drones. You've had plenty of opportunity to inspect the property and make sure it's safe. Now it's time to do that. Or if you're going to waste more money, why? Do you not want to farm there? Why would you fight me at the Ag Board like he said he was going to do, or he's already started? I didn't even file at the Ag Board yet. Why? Do you not like a farm in this town? And I also bought the neighboring property, which now I did speak to your tax assessor, kind of gives me enough land to even rebut some of Mighty Mike's fighting data, whatever he had. He should have taken that tenacity to fight the JCP&L people and find out why they couldn't go underneath the ground.
Thank you for your comment.
And not fight me.
Thank you. Sure.
Okay, I'll offer a few points in response. First, you could call me whatever you want, make whatever patronizing comment you want, but at the end of the day, I take my direction from my client, which is the Township Committee and not anyone else. First, on the comment that was made about the mayor previously making a reference to the statement, "We're not a farm," the mayor, as we corrected on the record at that meeting, was specifying the township's position that the property does not constitute a commercial farm, as that is defined in the Right to Farm Act, And so that was a reference to whether or not it qualifies for such protections. And as I outlined earlier, the protections that the property owner is seeking exempt it from Holmdel zoning. And Holmdel's position has been that its zoning does apply because it does not constitute a commercial farm, and that the property owner should be within the confines of the past zoning board resolution, which was from 2020, unless a new application were made to the zoning board. There was a statement made that there is no litigation right now. That is not true. The Superior Court enforcement action remains in full force and effect on both counts 1 and count 2, which involve UCC and UFC violations. There are also pending motions to enforce litigants' rights and also a motion to amend the complaint. The judge also made clear that the injunction remains in full force and effect pursuant to those counts, so that is not correct. To the extent an issue is raised regarding past interpretations of the zoning issues, it's been made clear, consistent with the judge's guidance, that the township should review any permit applications to determine if they could be complied with, and those processes are ongoing, and counsel between the parties, myself and Ms. Jennings, have been working together on those. We had a call just yesterday to continue to try to work together while the parties remain apart on some of the larger issues. In terms of the filing at the Ag Board, based upon the Superior Court judge's referral, it's on the township to initiate that action at the Agriculture Board based upon the guidance from my client, the Township Committee. That will be filed by the end of this week, and the parties will have the opportunity to respond. And as I mentioned at the outset, there is also a filing by a neighboring property owner that's already docketed in the Ag Board. And then lastly, as to the conversations with the tax assessor, certainly any resident is welcome to consult with any of the township's professionals to address any of their relative needs. Given that if there's active litigation, we will be responding, offering a meeting with council present so that the assessor could share whatever responses you need to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Ann Bontempo, 22 Grandview Drive. I just want to acknowledge Mr. Tribini for getting back to me from the last meeting on June 23rd regarding the tax assessment that was presented by the gentleman who was on the committee.
Eric.
I had a question on the Board of Health tax rate going up by 67% from the previous year. In 2025, our tax rate for Board of Health Services from the county was $186,552. 2026, it went up 67.05% to $311,628. Mr. Tribini got back to me and he said, I wanted to let you know that after much back and forth with the county, thank you very much, the health department rate for the whole county was wrong and has been subsequently fixed back to what it was. It appears to have been an internal clerical error. Sorry it took so long, but I needed to make many calls, I appreciate that, to get this straightened out before tax bills were released. So thank you for looking into it, and hopefully that means that our taxes have gone down because we didn't go up so much in our Board of Health tax rate. Oops, sorry. I want to just read in and close the loop on that and show my appreciation. What I wanted to also say was I've gone back through all of my emails. I've never, and I'm on the mailing list for the township to receive notifications on many, many things, agenda items, meetings, all sorts of planning, zoning board, every meeting that comes out, police reports, everything. I have not received one from Mr. Foster regarding JCP&L. I'd like to know exactly if you could resend them to me. When you sent out notifications in 2025 or 2024 regarding that?
It was a call and a post. I don't believe it was an email. I never said it was an email.
Then I misspoke. I apologize. When it was robocall, I assumed it was phone, text, and
I also get
an
robocalls,
email.
and I didn't get that either.
We'll make sure we get it to you.
All right. I'd like the dates on them also to know when that went out so that I can look them up on my phone because I don't delete anything.
September 29th of last year was the robocall.
9/29/25 robocall. Well, is there any other notification?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know, Brian, if there was anything else other than, would you say social, or just call and text or social?
I believe call, text, social, I do not recall.
Okay.
I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I do.
Call and text. Well, when Brian O'Malley comes back.
That's what I was going to say. I can get everything that anybody needs on that, and I'll look at all
So
that.
was it just one date it was sent out?
Besides the 3 meetings we had about it, yes.
Yeah, and the 3 meetings were when?
We have those dates
I have
as
it. Give
well.
me one second. August 12th, September 9th, September 25th is what I have.
And that's all of 2025?
All 2025. And Chris, and you can get Brian O'Malley to confirm that for me?
Yeah, I
just to
can
make sure.
confirm all those dates. And
He
I
sent
can
it to me, but I just want to make sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll confirm all those dates for you, Mayor, and also for the Deputy Mayor. Our system, if you're signed up for it, I want to make sure that people are signed up. If they're not, please contact my office. We'll get you signed up to make sure you signed up for it. It should tell us also who answered the calls, when it was answered, if it went to an answer machine, if the call failed, we have a wrong email address, if an email address has changed at any point in time, you have to update all that, but we'll be able to see where everything went to.
Okay, thank you.
So there's a way to sign up for it. If you contact my office, I'll send you all the information. Yeah, email Jerome. We'll get it all out to you, and you'll all be. Anybody who wants to, please reach out. We have it. So.
And I know I lost some time with your response. I have just one other thing. When
I forgot about
the agenda was put out, I came here under the impression that we were not going to be allowed to ask questions to JCP&L. It was only going to be done by the TC. If I'm wrong, please correct me, but prior to arriving here and prior to your statement that you made up on the dais, Mr. Mayor, the public wasn't allowed to ask questions. You opened that up, but you didn't clarify that that would be part of all agenda items. So some people didn't get a chance to come back and ask the rest of their questions that they wanted to. So just for communication and clarity, and to be respectful to the people who came up, asked a JCP&L question, and then when I clarified, I heard people say that they had other questions that they wanted to ask on agenda items. It wasn't clear that it was JCP&L was now part of the agenda items, because the way it reads, JCP&L, is a presenter here, and not part of the agenda that we could ask questions on.
Okay, thank you.
Do you understand what my point?
I do. I said at the beginning to ask
questions. We could ask questions of
comments for
JCP&L.
agenda of JCP&L and comments for agenda items only.
No, you said the quorum of 3 minutes would be followed. You didn't say
Yeah.
this was inclusive of all agenda items.
Okay,
too.
we have public comment now, so people can ask questions related to the
Right,
agenda.
but JCP&L is gone, and if they wanted to ask something on the agenda prior to it, we couldn't ask them. If they just came up and asked JCP&L, which is, they figured they could come back and ask on agenda items, like,
Yeah, but
like
they,
this was a separate
and they certainly
questioning time.
you have public comment now, they can come back and ask questions on agenda items.
But you've already voted on the agenda items.
Yep. But we
And
can
if I
still
hadn't
clarify.
clarified it, like, I wouldn't have come up here and asked about the severability after you had already voted on it, and it wouldn't have made any difference, because you had already voted on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for understanding, and just better communication, so I understand and other people get the right chance to, to ask questions when it's appropriate to have actions taken on them.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Chris.
Anybody else? Yes.
Alicia Unison, 8 Riverside Lane, Holmdel. So many questions this evening. Sitting there was overwhelming for me. But it is noticeable to see the Township Committee asking these important questions tonight of the JCP&L representative, who was the only one who could show up this evening. To your point, he's the one you've been in contact with, even though he's only been in the position for a year, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Mayor, the real question is simple. Why were these same questions that you and we asked this evening not at the same level of scrutiny a year ago? In 2023, in 2024, in 2025, I've been in these meetings. People were asking, what are these polls going up? And I believe you, Mr. Tribini, at one point said, I've left messages, right? And they don't call me back. You said it tonight again, actually. Okay, but you've had that sort of plea before. So I guess we have to start holding ourselves more accountable, is my feeling. You guys, we, Mr. Collins, the level that you go after people and want to put everybody at the Supreme Court, right? Like, with our money. Mr. Franco's here. I mean, like, I get it. The guy's not following the rules, maybe. But, like, we're going to this level? But you didn't go to this level over those polls? Really, it's questioning your authority. It's questioning how you can sit in front of us and say these things to us with a straight face. And when Mrs. Bontempo gets up there and asks you a very basic question about the agenda items today, you had nothing to say back, right? You really didn't. You had nothing because you weren't prepared for that question. You were prepared for a lot tonight, but you weren't prepared for that question. So residents raised these concerns year after year, yet the committee did not apply this level of attention until today. We had the assemblywoman here, you got the county involved. You're asking these questions tonight? Till tonight you waited to call BPU? Yes? That's when we're getting people involved? What happened to that outrage that Jay Yanello brought up earlier? That outrage that you put out there on Facebook? You haven't followed up with anybody all month? I was waiting to hear from you. What did you do? Who did you reach out to? Who did you speak to? Anyone? If these are the right questions to ask today, that you asked today, why weren't they the right questions to ask over the last 3 years? And I think each of you owe it to us to tell us why. And if not, hold him accountable. He's our mayor. It's time somebody takes responsibility for this.
Any other public questions? Yes, Ken.
Ken G. H. Say Street. So earlier, this is part two, since you were reading the opinion from the judge from the earlier case in 2016. It's interesting because you were reading the opinion, then you should know from the opinion that, in fact, Holmdel was part of that. And so I just don't think it's right for you to continue to say rage, 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 when, in fact, Rate Council, Holmdel Township, as part of the joint municipal group, and Rage all defeated that transmission line in 2016. But since you were reading that line and you mentioned the 34K lines, so Rage was very specific. We actually hired an expert, I mentioned this earlier, from Florida, who actually ran through what they call power flow studies. And that's when we proposed an alternative. To make it work, we said there were two STATCOM, as you know, just for the layperson. Those were voltage regulators. I call them capacitors because they will serve the same purpose. But after the study was done, we said that, the experts said that there were existing 34.5K lines that had much older wires. So when you run electricity through wires, they get hot. And they said because of the thermal rating of the old wires, they get too hot. So that's when we said specifically that we identified certain 34.5K lines that needed to be updated. Not anyone, very specific lines, not replacing Holmdel or Aberdeen or Matawan. So that quote that you were reading from the judge opinion was very specific, replacing existing conductors that were old so that they have a higher thermal rating, and that was the complete solution. And we estimate at that time, now this is 10 years ago, to be roughly about $35, $40 million. The original project was estimated to be over $100 million. You asked the question from JCP&L, what did it cost for the Holmdel portion? They didn't answer. I bet you dollars to donuts, that number is going to be over $200 or $300 million when you look at all of the components combined. I don't know if it's just Holmdel, what that component would be. So versus what we had estimated back 10 years ago, would have been somewhere between $35, $40 million. One last thing, I got 44 seconds. BPU is conducting a hearing on the reliability of JCP&L. They are notorious. They are actual annual metrics on what we call reliability, not being a geek into that stuff. But so JCP&L, when you compare to PSE&G and the two other electric utility, they have much lower reliability, and the BPU now is starting to look at that very carefully. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, look, I think just in a quick response to that, if I'm hearing correctly, let me say it differently, because I said it this way before and didn't seem to resonate. Going back to that judgment, I think the fundamental question is, very simply, would this project have happened had that judge not ruled against JCP&L 10 years ago? It is my opinion, based on the fact pattern, based on the judge's ruling, based on your emphasis and support of that ruling in a 2021 amicus brief, that this upgrade, this infrastructure upgrade, would not have happened had the monopoles gone along the train lines. That's my opinion based upon the information that I have, the court documents, the quotes, and everything else. Now, they'll be here in 2 months, and we can ask that question, and they can tell us one way or the other. That's simply my point, and I think it's a fair question to ask. And again, I think the fact pattern concludes that had that other project gone through, this would not have happened. Now, in regards to any statements or questions about what we could have fought, should have fought, et cetera, this went to the BPU and got blessed by the BPU without anybody's knowledge in years far before 2023. If they were issuing notices in 2022 to residents, then it happened in 2022 or before. Based on what they're saying, I can't listen. I don't know what they're saying, if what they're saying is accurate or not. My simple point is, they went to the BPU, they circumvented the towns, they didn't need the towns because they didn't need anything from the towns. They didn't need variances, they didn't need zoning, all they needed were the permits to get the work done. And if they're asking for permits to get the work done and it complies with the ordinance, that means it's a done deal and there's no fighting it. The last time we fought a utility was the natural gas line over on Holmdel Road, and we spent a couple $100,000 and lost. We reverted back to exactly what was negotiated prior to the lawsuit. It was a losing proposition. So that was it. So we're not, guys, we're not calling out from seats. If anybody wants to come up for public comment, then come up for public comment. But that is the point that I'm laying out here, which is very simply, this was a done deal by JCP&L. If you have questions for JCP&L in terms of what they did and how they executed, and they couldn't get answered tonight, you can submit them to the township, and we can try to get them answered before the September meeting when everybody comes in, when their team comes in, or we can wait till that meeting for the deeper questions. That's where we're at. Yes, Nancy? Yeah.
According to the rules, Nancy Cagliostro, 214 Pebble Beach Court, Holmdel, New Jersey. Okay, so I'm not going to say anything now more about JCP&L, but I did hear about Verizon. Are we going to roll over and let them steamroll us too? I mean, we have to have some rights with the utility companies that they can't come in and destroy any town they feel they want to without a valid basis for improvement or quality of life for the town they're destroying. So now, let's see what you could do with Verizon and Comcast, because I could tell you all these utilities, I'd want to use certain words, don't provide adequate service to this town. Verizon stinks, Comcast stinks, JCP&L stinks. Come on, guys, don't roll over. Let's show some muscle, okay?
Chris, you've already spoken to Assemblywoman
But
Flynn?
I also do want to say something. I'm the president of the board of my community, and I know how thankless these kind of jobs can be. So with my statements of saying, guys, let's show some muscle, I also want to thank you for the effort you do put on the part of our town, okay?
Thank you. And to Chris's point earlier, he already spoke to Vicky about rattling the cage with Verizon, as we've had some difficulty getting those guys on the horn. So, Nathan, let me, if you've come up already, I don't think you have. Let me just get to anybody else that wants to speak. Peter?
Pete Franco, 5 Hopbrook Lane. Quick question. As far as what they're saying to call these hotline... Okay, as far as calling up utility companies or whatever, if there's a sag in a line, say like Grandview to Grandview along Shank Road, whatever, that'll hit my head and, walking the dog, whatever. Do I email you or do I have to go through the telephone company?
You're supposed to go to the telephone company, but if I can't get in touch with them, there's a good chance you're not going to get in touch with them. So just send it to me, because I'm going to be dealing with them. The telephone company is difficult. I can actually, one thing I can say, if I call Jose, and just so you know, Jose is he's the government rep. He took over for Frank Luna, so that's why he's only been here a year. So, but just so you know, he is very responsive to us. So, but when it comes to Verizon, yeah, if you have a problem with that, give me a call and I'll look into it.
Okay. Another question is, I know we spoke a lot about, or you guys spoke a lot about what's going on over at the whole Oak Hill farm or barn or whatever. That was a lot for something to not be on an agenda tonight. I mean, when they came out last, not they, but when you guys had people come here, with complaints at the last meeting, there were several of them that filled up the seats over here. I mean, I think we should, he has a big following. He has a lot of people that like him here. I think it would be nice if it was on the agenda where people can come out and show support for whatever's going on. And as far as Superior Court goes, if something is thrown out and it gets rushed to appeals court, does that have to go in front of the committee to get approval to take it to that next step to appeal it, or does it just get done right then and there?
That's everything I'll answer. That's
everything.
Okay. So, yeah, we talk about it as a committee, and then we determine whether or not we want to move forward with the next step in the legal process. Anybody else? Public comment? Matt? Nate, I gotta go one person per comment, so maybe offline, if you have a question, we can chat.
He went already.
Oh, I know. Welcome back, man.
Yeah. You broke.
Hello. Hey guys, Matt Weisfeld, 10 Riverside Lane, Holmdel, New Jersey. Really happy to be back here. I've missed a whole bunch. It seems. Oh, actually, it's a digital clock. That's easy. That's how you knew that, kid. So anyway, first and foremost, man, I'm so glad you guys partnered with Bayshore Medical Hospital, because I probably wouldn't be standing here if it wasn't for that. Had a little bit of a itsy bitsy medical event. It made me miss some things and everything else, and got there nice and fast, and Bayshore is amazing. I know there was some of the faces up here that made that happen. Whatever you did, freaking flawless. And you know what? The food was pretty darn good also. I don't care what anyone has to say. I had a phenomenal time short of the, near-death experience. That was not so great. On a lighter note, just want to remind everybody that CELU will be having Sip and See August 5th at 6 o'clock. Super important and everything else. So I want to make sure that happens. I hope you're all going to be there. We're going to have mixers. We're going to have a gigantic checkerboard thing because the kids love that stuff. And talking about watersheds and all this stuff and everything else. So, and Farmer Franco, come also. We talk about farms. Talk about all this stuff. And again, guys, I heard somebody mention about underground poles, so I'll throw it out there. Not underground poles, you know what I mean. Underground power lines, all that fun stuff. So, I mean, yeah, I'm kind of wondering also. I mean, like, it just seems like, it could have been done. And, I mean, I did my ChatGPT research like everybody else because I don't know a damn thing about this stuff. But it seems like it's one of those short-term, bigger cost, long-term, bigger gain, saying as, again, the armchair guy over here with that stuff. So it seems like that makes sense. Also, somebody mentioned that in like 5 years, everyone's going to forget the polls even exist. Probably true. Hopefully not. Hopefully we're going to solve it all. We're going to chop down that pole in front of Holmdel Park and everything. But just in case, the second polls, like when, I know there's like a 10-year limit so they can really screw around because it's JCP&L, but nonetheless, can we get rid of those sooner than later? Because I feel like that would help a lot. That if that went away, if that happened, then it's, it's still, I mean, again, not the, yeah. I mean, Nate, listen, we're dropping all that excess on your lawn too, so don't you worry, man. So we got you. Nonetheless, I think that would probably help. I think I got it all. Anything else? I'm just kidding. I'm going to sit down before I get lightheaded.
Thanks, Matt. The original poles have to have the utility lines moved up to the new poles, and that's what Chris was talking to Assemblywoman Flynn about, which is getting the utility company on the move, not the utility company, the telecom company on the move, get them to get the work done and get the poles out of here. So we're trying to expedite that as quickly as we can. That's why we were fortunate enough to escalate, I don't know, half an hour ago at this point. So thank you, Vicky, for being here, by the way. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the work you did. And it should be known, Vicky was incredibly helpful during the outages. You know, we were on a lot of calls. Vicky was escalating. She was on vacation in Florida and reaching out to all the Bayshore mayors, the legislative District 13 mayors, and everybody to try to help us any way she could. So she escalated up to BPU, every other department with initials I can't remember at this point, but really appreciate your leaning in. So thank you for that. Yeah, it's like it's 2026 down there or something. Yeah, yeah. Wild. Nate, can we take it offline? I want to do one question per person. All right, I'll get you after the meeting if that's all right. Anybody else for public comment? Lance?
That was close. Lance, Loopy Line Road. I'm going to defend you on one point. I understood your points about the earlier comment and JCP&L question. It's clear to me. Now I'm coming at you. Yep, absolutely. So extreme flooding, July 11th. Chingarora Creek flooded tremendously, affected my business, lost 4 cars, okay, right next to my property. Went to Holmdel Township to talk about that because that's where the property is located. They, first of all, just some comments on their structure, process. Meeting started 7, great. Public meetings, 5 minutes, and they're at the beginning of the meeting, and you get to sit down in a chair. And there's no timer, you know, nothing like that. You know, they're not afraid to have dialogue with their residents. So really a refreshing experience in Hazlet. So just thought I would share that with you. On that note about other meetings, we started a couple meetings where we talked about all the agenda items. We went, you know, you guys went through them all, and that seemed to have ceased tonight. So I'm not sure what happened, what the difference is between tonight and prior meetings. At that meeting in Hazlet, they mentioned a $210,000 machine that we want to buy in Holmdel, and we want to split that cost with some other towns, neighboring towns, Hazlet, Union Beach, Keyport maybe. But no sense in us buying that machine because as they stated there, if the Chingarora Creek is stopped up at Hazlet, you can do anything you want with clearing stuff in this end. It's got no place to go. It's going to back up. So unless that problem downstream is resolved, then we're going to continue to have these problems. These are totally out of order. Beer Street, no turn on red. I've asked about it before. Speaking of Beer Street, the corner of that property for sale, I don't know if there's what's going on with it. I don't know if we have a line item on the agenda for, you know, let's let someone else buy it and then decide that we don't like it later, what we're going to offer to pay for it, and then what we're going to spend in legal fees. So just curious if we have, you know, any kind of expectation for that. The meeting that was canceled prior to the election, didn't bring it up last time. Really disappointing that happened. I know there may have been one person that was not available, but optically that tells me that either we didn't trust the other members of the council or committee to handle the possible, you know, questions that would have been asked at that. But it doesn't have a good look in my eye. Again, the 3-minute rule, really kind of weird that, you know, we've instituted this. Hopefully one day when there's a change up there, then that will disappear. Pickleball stats, curious about the pickleball stats. I went by the pickleball courts 3 times last week. Once in the afternoon around 2 o'clock, about 50 cars in the parking lot and 0 people at the pickleball court. Another day on a Friday I went there, there was 3 people, 3 courts being active, and another one there was 1. And for the JCP&L, just another comment, they give me door hangers and maybe they knock on my door for tree trimming. So I'm not sure why they can't come around and see people for, you know, when they're going to put these massive poles on their front yard. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to take pickleball first because, Gary, I think you had a different experience.
I played last night and every court was full up at least until 9 o'clock, from 6 o'clock on. So
And people
that's
were
just one night.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've played there and I've been there with a lot of folks. So I don't know what to say about that other than my experience has been different. Yeah. So look, we just missed reading off the agenda items tonight. There was nothing intentional about that. It was in the midst of, you know, getting everything in with JCP&L, and so we didn't preview the agenda as we typically do. Yeah, no, he was ready to go, and I skipped him. I unintentionally skipped him. The Hazlet machine. Chris, can you speak to that?
So we're talking about this right now. I don't know I know how far Hazlitt's gone with it, but I've spoken to their administrator. This is a thought that we have. It would be used along with Hazlitt and Union Beach because that's how it flows. It would have to be a shared service so that when we know that if something's cleared in one spot, we're clearing it in the next town and clearing it in the next town so it ends up in the right spot. We have not decided anything yet. I did bring it up to the mayor, and going forward, we'll know more about it once I can even look at a machine to see if it's even worth doing. So it's very early in those stages. If we're allowed to do something like that and we find out it's going to help us, then we'll probably go ahead and do something. But it will be a shared service, so therefore 3, possibly 4 towns would share the cost of that machine. And we're looking at a team together to actually run it. We have a lot of areas. But one thing we want to just note to our homeowners, unfortunately, under DEP rules, if you buy a home with a creek on it, it's your creek. It's not the town's creek. If you have a head wall on your property, you bought it with that head wall, meaning you have to maintain your creek. So a lot of these problems are happening because people are dumping stuff in their creeks. We've now found multiple Christmas trees in their creeks that flow down because people don't want to wait for the Christmas tree pickup, so they dump them in the creeks and they float down the creeks. So we kind of need some education more than anything right now, but we're working on everything we can do, and that's where we're at.
And then just lastly, Lance, to your point on the 3-minute rule, that rule's been in place actually a long time, and it's been enforced varyingly over the years. Based on some of the behaviors in the spring, we thought it best to do that. I think I've proven to this point that I, many times over, enjoy a dialogue with folks and going back and forth, oftentimes to probably my detriment or certainly the exasperation of the township staff who get here early in the morning. But for now, we're gonna hold to the rule, and we're gonna hold to the quorum rules that were in place. We're gonna enforce them. Anybody else for public comment? All right, motion to close.